What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Looks like we got a good crowd in the chat already. Welcome to the show, gang. MLB DFS Lineup Card live. My name's Terry McBride. Site is rotoscouts.com. Twitter handle is @rotoscouts. Pretty easy to track down, to follow. I'm sure everybody's already following us over there, but if you're not, give us a follow. Give us a like. Welcome to a Tuesday show for a massive slate with not a lot of premium pitching available on it. Think it's another interesting one. I tell you one thing, I know for sure now that the answer to last night's slate was not taking a heavy position on the Angels and not rostering much Max Scherzer. Made that mistake on last night's slate. Did not go well for me. Hopefully somebody out there took something down. A lot of the other stuff we talked about came through pretty nicely, including Merrill Kelly with a pretty decent start at Coors Field. Michaelis gave up a couple late runs and ruined his decent start for his value price tag. But overall, I thought we had some decent calls, but did not work out for me. But hopefully you guys didn't take as big a position against Scherzer as I ended up with chasing that Angels value. I think I might go back to it again today. It's in an interesting spot. But we'll get to that one. Lot to talk about on this slate. But let's say hi to everybody as they trickle in. Got Matt Tomlinson up top saying felt like fading Coors is working out more times than not this year. Yeah, I mean, part of that is that the Rockies just suck this year, so they're not really holding up their end of the bargain. Very below average performances, even at Coors Field for them at this point, particularly with several of their best players just out of the lineup. No Chris Bryant, no CJ Cron anymore, no Randall Grichuk anymore. It's just a really flawed lineup. We'll get to that too. They've got a big run total today, though, so they're an interesting decision point on today's slate. Calvin Dunn's in the chat. He says, how's everyone doing today? I'm doing pretty well, Calvin. It's been a pretty good day. I woke up early, knew that there was a lot of games to deal with today, so I knocked out the home run stuff. I was cranking away on the article. Somebody threw the switch in the fuse boxes over there and blew my power out a couple hours ago and zapped a couple paragraphs of the article, but fortunately non-tragic. Also reset my update on my team board, though, that I without me realizing it, so I won't be able to sort that tonight. I'm just going to use the one that's up on the website if I refer to it. But we'll get into all the different rankings. Everything's up on rotoscouts.com. Full articles up there breaking everything down. All 13 games in and out in a notes format today. Went through all the different pitching picks and the different stacks, all the value plays. We've got home run picks up there. We've got the power index up there. Some interesting spots to talk about here. Let's say hi to Larry C. Said hi to Calvin, Matt Tomlinson, Kevin O's there, Trey's here, Stephen Leibowitz is here, Lone Wolf's here, Phil Still's here. What's going on, gang? Lone Wolf asked, do you think I meant 4:15? No, buddy, he was just getting a couple things situated. Had to wolf down a BLT sandwich from down the street real quick before the show. I had like 10 minutes to do that, but then I realized I had probably some stuff on my teeth, so I went and brushed my teeth, had to put the cat away. Meanwhile, the clock trickled up to like 3:59, and I realized I still hadn't updated lineups, so I took a second. Larry's hanging out. Mike Palm. What's up, Mike Palm? Mike Palm says a simple hello, Terry. No hello to everybody else, though, from Mike. Just to me. Mike, I appreciate it, buddy, and hello just directly back to you, my friend. Welcome. James Sarcone, top pitching prices on DK is outrageous. I agree with that. There are some really expensive and really different site-to-site prices that we'll talk about. Could pitching be worse on a 13-gamer? Bluegrass Judas, I'm not sure that it could. This is a light pitching slate. It's going to get really interesting. I think these are fun. I like these kind of pitching slates. You guys know I like chasing some of the mid-range, the low-priced pitchers and gaining value in bats. So this is my kind of slate. Should be kind of fun. Trey says YouTube is fucking with him today. Hopefully it doesn't mean that it's everybody. Hopefully it's not on my end. Everything seems to be running smoothly over here. If anybody else is having issues, audio or otherwise, give me a heads up in the chat. Trey, hopefully you get that worked out, buddy. Stephen Leibowitz says, we are in fact the usual suspects. Does that make me Kaiser Soze? Does that make me not the investigator guy, certainly? I'll take Kaiser Soze, obviously, but I don't want to give myself that mantle. That seemed kind of shitty. I mean, for all I know, Stephen Leibowitz is our Kaiser Soze. Maybe it's Bluegrass Judas. Maybe it's Mike Palm. Maybe that's why Mike Palm only said hi to me, because he's Kaiser Soze. Either way, great movie. Trey says it's Lone Wolf says, Trey, it's Spectrum Internet. I am on Fios, fortunately, up here. Got a nice, sturdy signal. I love Fios. I think it's a great product. I think their customer service sucks, but I actually really love their product. I just have like all the pay channels. I've told you guys I can't exist without like regular TV. I also have all the different streaming services, which is like just triple dipping at this point with the amount that I go to the movies and all of that. I'm just paying for these, exposure to this entertainment multiple times in multiple venues, which I do think there's a path to creating some kind of like version of Movie Pass that just exists across all entertainment, but that's a story for a different day. But yeah, Trey, I agree. Everyone's customer service kind of sucks these days. Although I tell you what, I took a ride over to the dispensary yesterday after the show and after lock and everything, and get over there seamlessly. This dispensary plays a little bit of games with their inventory. It kind of sucks because you can place the order online. So I always put it in online so I can make sure I get what I want and it's going to be there when I get there. All the other places, great. They've always got it. This one that's closest to me over in Secaucus, for as good as they are and the fact that they sell marijuana legally, I can't complain too much. But the last few times I've been there, they've been like, oh man, we don't have that one. I'm like, well, why is it on your online inventory? Like, I just ordered it. And that happened again last night. But the lady there was cool and she helped me out and gave me a couple good recommendations that are working out great. But the actual story is on my way back. I get outside the place, I fire up Uber, and the guy who accepts the Uber is over here in Jersey City, kind of by like where I live almost. It's like 10 minutes away. And I wait like 3 minutes and it's raining. And he sends me a note via Uber. It says, cancel the ride. I'm in Jersey City. I'm like, well, you cancel the ride. I'm not going to pay a $6 cancellation fee just because you don't feel like driving over here. You cancel the ride. And he's like, well, just wait then. And I was like, all right, does just wait then mean I'm 10 minutes away, so you'll have to wait in the rain for 10 minutes, which I was willing to do because he was the closest Uber. Turns out what he meant was like, screw you, guy, just wait there. I'll leave you there indefinitely. He held my ride hostage. He drove off into the downtown area of Jersey City, presumably picked up a Lyft or an Uber Eats or something like that, went to a different destination entirely until I eventually had to bite the bullet and cancel the ride. So suffice to say that Uber support definitely heard from me on that one. But I was just like, holy shit, how can you just hold somebody's ride hostage and be like, well, you're stranded out there. Sorry. In the rain. Anyway, maybe that's a little bit of a get off my lawn kind of a thing, but I feel like that's the contract. Like, once you accept my ride, you're supposed to pick me up wherever I am and take me wherever I'm going. That's the whole point of how the app works. Am I wrong? Anyway. Bluegrass says anyone can take a reservation. It's absolutely right, dude. Absolutely. The old Seinfeld reservation bit. Yep, Larry's got it. Ken Woodhouse is here. What's going on, Ken? Good group in the chat. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Helps us out, helps you out, etc., etc. Follow the Twitter handle. We picked up a couple subscribers the last few days. I want to keep pumping that one up a little bit. At rotoscouts. That's the one to follow. That's the one for the site, and that's where things will be presumably happening, over time and everything. So let's crank that one up a little bit. But let's dive into this thing because we got a lot to talk about. I think it makes a ton of sense to start with the pitching board. Let's just get over here real quick. Mr. Bailey Ober, come on down. Top of the board with a matchup against the Detroit Tigers. It's a fantastic spot. He's a good enough pitcher. We've both succeeded and failed with Bailey Ober in the past. He's definitely at premium pricing for Bailey Ober, but it's one of the best matchups on the board, and it's probably the most talented pitcher in the best matchup on the board. The most talented pitcher overall on the board is Zach Wheeler, but he's going up against the Blue Jays. He's 10-8, 11-6. He projects very, very well, but there's not a lot of daylight between Wheeler, Giolito, Pivetta for both lower prices on FanDuel. Giolito inexplicably priced at $10,700 on the DraftKings slate. Unless they were peeking at my model and not from what I saw many others around town, I don't really understand why Giolito would be that high priced. I expect he'll be fairly low owned in this spot. And I like him a little bit better than Patrick Sandoval last night. But yeah, I question why he's that expensive. I do like him as a value option on the FanDuel slate. I think he'll be pretty low owned at that price on DK, if nothing else. Michael Wacha, first start back. This is one where I have no idea what the innings are going to look like. This is just like 5 and change innings. It's a respectable projection. He's a good enough talented pitcher. But this is his first start back since July 1st. He's been dealing with a shoulder injury. He's been rehabbing it, making simulated starts. He made 1 2-inning appearance on the 5th in the minors. So kind of dicey around the Wacha one, especially at price. I just don't know if we need it with all these guys kind of looking the same. Basically, everybody from here to here is essentially the same with a 5-point projection spread in FanDuel scoring. I like some of these options better than others. Some of them are in better matchups than others. There's a lot of weird on this slate. Jordan Montgomery, I think, is correctly priced at 98 on FanDuel. I'll take some shares of him, but 11,000 on DK is second most expensive DK pitcher. That seems wildly inappropriate until you look at who the other options are, and it's like, all right, I guess he probably does make sense to be that guy, but is he that guy? Is he that guy for DFS? It's kind of a tough spot. Elder against the Yanks, pretty cheap. Fado against the Twins with all their strikeouts. Not completely untalented, I don't think. A little bit of strikeout potential there. Jack Flash against the top-heavy Pods is kind of a better spot on DK for a change than on FanDuel. I'll take him on both sites, though. I think there's potential there. I think there's a better ceiling than there is a projection on that one. I like Emerson Hancock for cheap pricing against KC. Somebody asked about David Peterson in the Discord. I kind of like this value spot if I can get him for 5 innings. This is a 5-inning exactly projection. Gives him around here with a little bit of upside for more if he finds his strikeouts. It's just the pitches I question. I think we're still dealing with like 75, 80 pitches. This one's an interesting one. Josiah Gray's been pitching well. Mid-board projection for fair prices, but Boston leads my projections and leads the home run model, so it's kind of both-sided at best. Bobby Miller, I question the pricing at 92, 93. Don't love that. Zach Littell, value option. Kyle Hendricks is even kind of on the board for value as an SP2 on DK. I think you could maybe get to some Dakota Hudson shares on DK at 58. I don't know if I like it at 64 on FanDuel. That's kind of the bottom of the barrel here, though. People want to throw darts at like Touki Toussaint against the Cubbies in a spot where I really like the offense. If they want to go to like Adrian Hauser against the Dodgers, so be it. Good luck. I certainly can't imagine anybody out there is looking to go to Luis Severino against the Braves or like Ty Block against the Diamondbacks, Spencer Watkins against the Cardinals. All right, that's it. That's the end of the show, gang. See you later. I forgot that I was doing the start of the show there and broke down the entire slate real quick. Anyway. We'll start at the top, and we'll take this one again a little slower. Red Sox, Nick Pivetta on the board. Decent pricing, 7,800, 8,500. I'm expecting a full bore as far as the innings goes. He's my fourth highest projected starter, I think, when we were just looking at the board 2 seconds ago. Should be able to remember that kind of thing, but I don't. He's only made 2 traditional starts since May 16th. They were his last 2 appearances. He was really, really good in that bulk relief role in extended innings. His strikeout rate was outrageous in that role, and it's improved his overall numbers. He went, let's see, in the last appearance in his start, he went 8 innings, walked 2, allowed 2 runs on 2 homers, 4 total hits. He worked 4 innings of relief in between that and a start on July 31st, where he went 7 1/3, struck out 10 Mariners. He's on regular rest. He was on a day short rest with that start in between on the last 2. So on regular rest, I have expectations of full innings for Nick Pivetta if he can manage them here. And it's a really good matchup against this Nationals team. They're a low-end option. 86 WRC plus, 29th out of 30 teams against right-handed pitching for the active roster this year, a 131 ISO. They're only just okay at limiting strikeouts, 19.6%. It's a good strikeout rate, but he's got a 29.6 on the season between the 2 hybrid roles. So I like the Pivetta side of this equation, and I think he's really correctly priced. 7,800 is cheap on DK, and 85 is a bargain price on the FanDuel slate. So I think on this slate especially, he's really valuable at these prices. He's going to be probably pretty popular, but I think it's totally justifiable chalk. Josie Gray on the other side, Josiah Gray, 7,600, 8,200, fairly priced, projects okay, has been performing fairly well this season in terms of limiting the ridiculous home run problems that he had the last couple of years. Again, to reiterate a point we've made numerous times this season, last year, 5.86% home runs on 10.7% barrels. Year before, 6.19% home runs on 12.2% barrels. It's demonstrable growth for a young pitcher who is projected to be a pretty talented kid. It's come at the cost of a few additional walks, not many additional walks, half a point, not much, but a dip of about 4 points in strikeout rate. Swinging strikes are about the same, but the CSW is down a little bit, but just overall fewer strikeouts for him with still a fair amount of barrels, not really a problematic home run rate and a 3.69 ERA, but a 5.01 xFIP, giving up way too many opportunities by putting that many guys on base. So I think it's still a problematic spot in terms of I'd rather be on the Red Sox side of this, given how well they project in the model, given all these guys with still showing home run upside against this pitcher. So I just prefer the Red Sox spot. But for 76.82, I do think some shares of Josiah Gray, if you want to go there, are at least playable here. It's just not a good matchup. But he's a talented enough pitcher. 20% strikeout rate is okay. For a slate like this, I think he would be in play if I just didn't want to get kind of over the top, I think, with some Red Sox options here. I'm really liking that power core that's highlighted there. Justin Turner, Rafael Devers, Trevor Story, Tristan Casas, Adam Duvall. That's a killer group of power hitters. 19 homers for Turner on this season. Excellent season. Kind of under-discussed season from Justin Turner overall. Second base option on DK for $4,700. First and third on FanDuel for only $31. He's still really cheap. He's easy to get to with the positioning. 19 homers, a 288, 354, 488 triple slash, a 200 ISO, 126 WRC plus. He's been having just another excellent Justin Turner season. He strikes out at a 16.3% clip. He gets himself on base. Verdugo's a very good leadoff option, only 4,100, 2,800. Down a little bit in the triple slash, but still a pretty good correlated scorer with all of this premium talent for power. Rafael Devers, I've talked about a bunch of times. We're just taking the discount because we're only buying him for the power. I don't care about the triple slash being a little bit down. The run creation's down a little bit. I'm just looking at Devers for that big-time lefty power here. Story pops up to 368, 400, 579 with a 165 WRC plus in his 20 plate appearances. So had those first couple bumpy starts, but has kind of come roaring to life. Hasn't hit a homer yet, but it's got that upside, obviously. Monster number at 12.49 with second base and shortstop eligibility on both sites. Love the option with Story. You guys know I like Tristan Casas. He's still not nearly pricey enough. 4,300, 3,000. Take him at the discount. That's a great option. You can play all three of him, Devers, and Turner on the FanDuel slate, and you can also do it on DK since Turner's a second baseman. So that's dynamite. You can mix Story in there because he's a shortstop. This whole stack works on both sides, so that's great. 4,200, 2,900 for Adam Duvall with a 13.05 in the home run model, 11 homers on the season, a 273 ISO and 211 plate appearances. Sign me up from here to here, top 1 through 7, because Jarren Duran's really good at 4,600, 3,000 down the bottom of the lineup. Lefty bat, creating runs 24% better than average, mid-range power, good speed on the bases. Pablo Reyes, Reese McGuire, kind of mix and match options there. If you're drawing shares of Nationals against Nick Pivetta, it's not ideal. I expect he's going to succeed against them. They're better when it's a lefty on the mound to go to. They get a little bit more popularity in that slate. Maybe you pick off Pivetta on a bad day with a little bit of value here, but it's not great. It's really around the top four. CJ Abrams, Lane Thomas, Joey Meneses, and Keibert Ruiz. These four hitters are the quality in this lineup. That's where the power's been. It's the hitters that they are either, in some of these cases, young players that these are expected to grow with the team. But it's not great overall. Joey Meneses is kind of limited in terms of power. 281, 326, 416. A decent output with his hit tool, but only a 136 ISO, only creating runs at league average. Abrams has been inarguably better in the leadoff role. 93 WRC plus overall, good counting stats. Thomas has declined a little bit, but still good stats overall. And then Kiebert's got power behind the plate at 4,300, 2,800 as a cheap catcher. I would maybe go to like Stone Garrett down here and just hope that I pick off a cheap home run. 8.8% barrels, 48.2% hard hits, 7 long balls, and 240 opportunities. Most of those are against lefties, if I remember correctly. Most of his outputs against lefties, but he's an okay enough bat. Dom Smith has been dead at the plate, Jake Galoo, Lamaro Vargas, and then Blake Rutherford hiding down here I would highlight. Dead minimum on DK, 2,100 on FanDuel, has done nothing in his 20 plate appearances. Former first-round pick, little bit of talent. They're giving him a shot. So I think you can go to Rutherford at the bottom of the lineup. Maybe you make him a wraparound play. His profile is one of low mid-range power and maybe a little bit of speed. Mid type option. Red Sox bats, Nick Pivetta, and then mix in for me for Josiah Gray. If you like him better than I do, go for it. It's not a bad play by any means on this slate. I'm just showing a lot more potential for the Red Sox side of it. And then really low-end opportunity for the Nationals. I don't really like that. Even as a value spot, it's not one of my favorites on the board. Phillies, Blue Jays. Interesting pitching matchup here. You guys saw Zach Wheeler up near the top of the board. Shannon's here. Shannon says, pitching looks rough today. Shannon says, Hudson going to be really popular on DK, question mark. I don't know. Maybe. I think it's a playable spot. Obviously a very good matchup. I'd be surprised if that's going to be that popular because, boy, he's bad. Yeah, the Braves get Sevy. That's going to be a killer spot. That's got to be really, really popular. I have to imagine the Braves are going to be ludicrously popular given their upside here. And given the way that lineup comes together with the discount in there with Ozzie Albies out. Anyway, Wheeler is a really high-end option here. Excellent pitcher. 27.2% strikeouts, 4.4% walks on the season, a 3.74 ERA with a 3.45 xFIP. That's a little bit better. Rarely gets dinged for too many runs, rarely gets dinged for too much power. Every now and then it goes a little sideways in the early innings a lot, especially when I talk about him, I feel like a lot recently. Just for some reason, I feel like the last couple times I've rolled out the big Zach Wheeler number at high prices, he hasn't really gotten there for me, but I'm going right back to it. Even with the Blue Jays on the other side, projects out second overall on the board. Very expensive on the DK slate. I think that'll probably keep him a little less popular than he should be given the opponent. Very expensive on FanDuel as well, but I think worth getting to, and there's so much value on the slate that it's easy enough to get to. So I'm not really that worried about the pricing. The ownership would be the interesting wrinkle. If he gets popular in either site, there's obviously other spots to go that project similarly. There's one guy that projects a little higher and a lot of guys that project within just a couple of fantasy points. So for the money, the points per dollar, it might not be quite as strong, not quite as high an opportunity, but I think he's got one of the better ceilings on the slate and one of the higher floors on the slate. So I think Wheeler, at worst, if you're looking for like the idea of safety, nobody's safe, right? There's no such thing as safe. But a guy who gives you at least the warm and fuzzies about being safe is probably Zach Wheeler on this slate. The Blue Jays, playable on the other side. Whit Merrifield for a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed, some good correlated scoring ability. Second base and outfield on FanDuel still. Outfield only on DK. Diminishes his value. I like getting him at second base, but you do have two other second basemen in this lineup, with Kevin Biggio hitting 5th and Santiago Espinal hitting 8th. So it makes sense, I guess, that he's outfield only, and you can kind of get a similar opportunity at second base with either one of those players. Biggio's hit for a little bit of pop this year, 8 home runs in 202 plate appearances, 167 ISO, and 11.6% barrel rate. That's not nothing from the left side for a very cheap player in a good spot in this lineup. Going up against Wheeler, though, with his ability to limit barrels, limit hard hits, limit home runs fairly reliably, I don't love homer hunting with this lineup. And when I'm not looking for this lineup for power, they do sequence somewhat well, at least at the top of the lineup, but it kind of falls off down bottom. So I don't know how much Blue Jays I really get to going up against Zach Wheeler here. Could be a limiting situation. I know I said that about the Rangers against Sandoval yesterday, and it worked out that they were the highest scoring team on the slate. But I will make that point again, where it could just be an opportunity where if Wheeler gets dinged, it's only for a few runs. They don't look great. He doesn't look great. And neither side works out. But my preference is Wheeler here for sure. Brandon Belt undervalued at the top of the lineup at 3,600, 3,000. Excellent for on-base skills, correlated scoring, some premium contact, 11 home runs on the season from the left side. Vladdy and George Springer are underpriced, but also underperforming slightly, stars. Vladdy, I do look for power. It's a little bit different than the underperforming, underpriced Devers spot, because Devers is still hitting for as much power as we expected from him, arguably more power, where Vladdy's power is kind of out this year. The contact is excellent. He's got 18 home runs, which is fine for many players, but not for Vlad Guerrero. We know he's better than that. Only a 173 ISO is kind of a letdown from Vladdy. So him being priced down here isn't just a take the discount situation. It is, because he's still Vladdy Guerrero. He's still got that upside. He's still got that ceiling in this matchup, but he is definitely underperforming in the key things that we look to him for, where Devers is still providing those things. Springer, 14 homers, 15 steals, a 102 WRC+. Also underperforming, only 136 ISO. Triple slash is down. Not great on the season, but that's why he's cheap. Alejandro Kirk, Dalton Varsho, Espinal, Paul DeJong from the bottom of the lineup. Any one of those guys can hit you a homer. A couple of them can steal you a base. They're all sub-average for run creation this season, with the bottom 3 guys in the 70s at this point. So it's a declining lineup toward the bottom. Not the elite Blue Jays they've been in a number of other years. No Matt Chapman in the lineup today. Obviously still without Bo Bichette is a big downgrade for that lineup. So not the premium version of the Blue Jays by any means. Helps Zach Wheeler's cause for sure. Yusei Kikuchi, 24.6% strikeouts, that's good. 6.9% walks is good. 3.53 ERA is good. 3.96 xFIP is good. 1.23 whip is a little higher than you'd want, but it's fine given the strikeout numbers. The problems come in for Kikuchi, as always, around a 4.32% home run rate, 9% barrels, 41.7% hard hits, 90 plus miles an hour of exit velo. It's the same problem every time. He's a flawed pitcher in terms of giving up power, but he is good for strikeouts in the right spot. He is undeniably talented at finding his strikeouts. So for 9,000, I think in limited doses on the DK slate, he's probably playable. 99 on FanDuel. He projects out fine. He's a part of that plateau of a lot of mediocre pitchers in, bad to worse matchups. So I think he's a part of the slate. I just don't know how much I end up getting to him with a lot of those guys at lower prices projecting right next to him, above him, just below him. So not one of the ones I typically go to anyway. I think the last time out I went to Kikuchi as a pitcher while saying, hey, I greatly prefer attacking this guy with bats. I think my angle on this one's going to be more leaning into the Phillies bats and the upside that they're showing here. So I like some of the Phillies hitters. Obviously, Kyle Schwarber, 16.04, isn't going to lose much against this lefty. 30 home runs on the board at 242 ISO, hits lefties very well. Alec Boehm, 4,700, 3,200, 12 homers at 287, 344, 31, productive WRC+. Bryce Harper's a star, 5,534. You could say that Harper's underpriced, but probably needs to hit for his regular power to get to that mantle. He's at least fairly priced, though. Productive bat, 118 WRC+ on the season, 7 homers, 7 steals. Good triple slash. Nicky Castellanos been good all year. Was briefly looked like he was going to rise in price and then came right back down, 4,700, 3,200. Excellent option. 20 home runs, a 110 WRC+. He's been doing it all season for this lineup. Minor, ups and downs overall, but minor ups and downs, in spurts, but the overall is excellent for Castellanos. Bryson Stott's really good. Lefty hitter at second base for only 4,300, 3,100 across sites. 11 homers, 22 steals. Trey Turner's got 12 homers, 22 steals. Stott's outpacing him with a 109 WRC+, a 297 average, a 342 on base, a 438 slug. In every way except for the ISO by, 0.005, Bryson Stott's outperforming Trey Turner this season. Not in the contact profile, 6.6% barrels to 4.4%, 40.4%, hard hit rate to 35.8% for Turner in both categories over Stott. They're both good options in the middle infield. If I'm going to this Philly stack, I like using those two plays in the middle infield and putting these two guys together with basically any one of these three guys, but it's primarily Harper and then probably one or the other of these two and Kyle Schwarber. I like the effectiveness of that stack. On FanDuel, where you're getting 4 of them, at least you're getting some multi-position eligibility out of some of these guys. So they're easy to mix and match around the board. You've got Real Muto laying in the bottom of the lineup, 4,800, 3,000, cheap on DK for where you need catchers. 15 homers, 12 steals, 5% better than average creating runs at 215 ISO. That's one of the more productive catcher bats in the game. He's playable on FanDuel at 3,000. Edmundo Sosa, Jolan Rojas at the bottom of the lineup, mix and match kind of guys. Sosa hits a home run every now and again. 7 on the season, a 159 ISO, 81 WRC+. We'll see if we can conjure another cheap mid-priced home run from Edmundo Sosa. Not ideal, though, even though he's mid-priced, to have to stick him at third base. Where you can get him in rotation at shortstop and you're replacing a couple Trey Turner shares, it's a little bit better. Third base is just a more premium position than what he's going to give you on most slates, so it's a little costly. So for me, it's Zach Wheeler, enthusiastic, yes, even at price. Hopefully we get him a little bit less popular than he should be. Philly stacks, definite yes. I'll probably be, I'm not sure where the field is, but I imagine I might get a little ahead of the field on Phillies bats. I just like going after Kikuchi's home run issues, especially with a team like this that produces, that sequences fairly well, that creates runs, that hits for power, has speed up and down the lineup. I think it's a good spot for the Phils. And then small doses of Blue Jay stacks. I don't really like targeting Wheeler, even with a better team than this. Wheeler's one of the guys I typically don't chase, given how good he is typically at limiting premium contact, limiting power. 34.5% hard hit rate with a 2.14 home run rate, 85.7 miles an hour of exit velo last year, 84.6, a 28.5% hard hit rate, 4.6% barrels, 1.88% home runs the year before. Wheeler is typically very, very good at limiting home run power, limiting premium contacts. So just a pitcher I don't love to chase, and I don't love this version of the Blue Jays lineup. So minor shares. A lot of games to go. See if we got the Pirates lineup in. Oh, we got a bunch of lineups in. All right. Get Brian Hayes back in the leadoff spot for the Pirates, going up against David Peterson. So the issue with Peterson, despite liking him in terms of what he's proven at the major league level and his strikeout rate over time, I just think we're limited by innings again. Let me drop the Pirates lineup in here real quick. So I know across town they had him at 70-something pitches, high 70s. I was saying 70 to 80. In his last outing, he went... pulling it up. Bear with me while I pull it up here. 3 innings the first time back on the 4th, and then 3 2/3 the last time back. Faced 12 hitters, faced 16 hitters. That's not a lot of depth. Struck out 5, walked 2 in the most recent start against the Cubbies. Struck out 1, walked 3 against the Orioles at Baltimore in the first outing back. I just think we're too limited on innings. I like the matchup for him against the Pirates here. Like I said at the top, this is a 5-inning projection. It was in the middle of the board for 6,700 on either site. I don't think he's unusable. I just think the ceiling is probably capped unless he goes out there and, throws 80 amazing pitches and racks up 8 strikeouts in a very 4-inning performance. It's on the board. He's got a 24.1% strikeout rate this year. He's got an ERA problem, but a much better xFIP. He's had a little bit of issues with premium contact around the hard hit rate, but it hasn't cost him that much in terms of home runs. And then last year he worked pretty well. 105 and 2/3 innings over 19 starts, 27.8% strikeouts. That is definitely not nothing. 24% strikeouts 2 years ago, 5.54 xFIP, 3.93 ERA, 3.83 ERA, and a 3.31 xFIP last year. Gave up a lot of premium contact again, but was not really bad for home runs. So you catch him on the right night, maybe Peterson gets you there, but it's a really thin needle to thread on this one. I don't think you need to go there, even with the lack of overall pitching upside. It's a value price. You can throw a dart at it or two. Bailey Falter on the other side, I don't really want any part of here. 6,400, 6,800. I didn't see any reason to go to him. We are looking at lower third of the board projection, 15.4% strikeout rate, 5.21 ERA, a 4.72 xFIP, a 4.21% home run rate. I think all of that just plays in the Mets' favor here. I don't think we're really chasing Bailey Falter shares. I don't think he is getting a premium. What's he doing? Yeah, it's probably just more limited by talent than anything else. Mid-range in the innings and the pitches projection here. So yeah, I don't really see it for Bailey Falter. I think we just go to Mets bats. 3 good power projections, really 4 if we're including Nimmo, who's just below the magic number for home run upside at the top of the lineup. So I like this version with these 4 hitters at the top. It gets really quickly flawed after that. Arroz, Mendick, and Tim LaCastro get down to like really questionable as far as DFS plays, as far as upside for those hitters. Those are some light hitting, like defensively oriented players. Jeff McNeil is also a light hitting, hit tool, but not getting it done via BABIP this year kind of a player. So that's 4 spots in this lineup that are a little bit flat. And then you get Mark Vientos, who does put bat on ball really well at this level so far, but his sub Mendoza at 198, 234, 293, only a 46 WRC plus, 2 home runs on the board. I like him for cheap power potential, but it's kind of a short lineup for the Mets. So I don't know how over the top I get with Mets shares. Any one of these guys down here or these 3 guys could help the lineup turn over. LaCastro's got a little bit of speed if he manages to get on base, but none of these guys have been productive at this point. So I don't really like going to these options. Not the biggest samples in the world, but there's just no real upside here. Right? I mean, maybe we can make an argument in 106 plate appearances for who's that? Mendick. But that's probably my least favorite of those options overall. So limited bottom end for the Mets. Excellent power core up at the top, though. You can just make 4-mans all day with that group if you wanted to, and then build in like a cheap Vientos, a Jeff McNeil if you wanted to. But you've got a catcher there, first baseman, a shortstop, and an outfielder at all affordable prices, 4 productive bats. 22 homers and 20 stolen bases for Lindor, the 121 WRC plus, 124 with a 358 on base for Nimmo, 35 home runs and a 298 ISO on the board for Alonso, 21 home runs for Alvarez with fairly cheap catcher pricing at 4,000, 2,800, given the ceiling that we know is there for 2 home runs. 249 ISO, 110 WRC plus. The triple slash has been up and down a little bit with his performance, but the premium contact has been great. Outstanding rookie catcher option. Hitting in the heart of the lineup, one of the better catcher plays on the slate overall. Pirate side, if you're going there, if you're attacking the David Peterson shares, which I think you can do, but it's kind of a limited set of options. Brian Hayes from the top. We've talked a bunch of times about his premium contact, about his lack of output in general, but I do think at the pricing, he's a fair enough option at third base. Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, go-to kind of veterans, a little bit obvious there. Connor Joe against the lefty, successful enough against lefties. 9 home runs overall in the season, a 104 WRC plus. He's not expensive. He's got eligibility at first and in the outfield. And then you get the run of rookies and somewhat unproven players. Henry Davis, Leo Verpiguero, Joshua Palacios sneaking in there. Forgot to change his name. Actually, no, I did change his name yesterday. What the hell? I went out of my way to add him because I had to do Josh and Joshua back and forth in a bunch of different spots. I think they changed it again. I think it was Josh the other day, and it went back to Joshua, and now I got to reverse all that shit that I changed. Damn it. That's annoying. Anyway, he's not that big a play. Jared Triola, 2,400, 2,200, 271, 341, 314, 84 WRC plus, and 132. Jason Delay, light-hitting catcher, 1 home run on the board, a 109 WRC plus, 7% worse than average, and 133. Greatly prefer when Indy Rodriguez is in the lineup, the rookie catcher, but he's not today. So I like to bump up into this spot in the lineup for Peguero, if nothing else. 3,000, 2,500 middle infield at both positions on both sites. 4 homers and 2 stolen bases in just 67 plate appearances. Interesting bat as a rookie hitter down there. So it's like, really, these guys on the on either site, 6 hitters there. Doesn't give you a catcher on the DK slate, but you get one on FanDuel, where you don't really need it. So, Mets bats, Pirates bats, David Peterson valued darts, and they're extreme darts because we don't know what the innings are going to look like. And no love for Bailey Falter from me. Jump over to see what's going on in the chat. Stephen Leibowitz, yeah, Mets have been such an underperforming team as much as anyone, yeah. Tell that to Cohen, who spent, $400 billion on this year's lineup. Ridiculous. It's insane how, I mean, it's a smart business move since they can afford to do it with Cohen's endless funds. But it's insane the way that they were just like, yeah, go ahead, take Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, and we'll pay, a giant portion of their huge salaries, and we'll just buy a prospect from you, basically. Like, they've got the resources to do that. So I think they made strong moves, given how underperforming they've been, given how, Jimmy's finally here. We can get started. Thank you. God, we've been just shooting the shit waiting for you, Jimmy. Welcome. Good to see you, buddy. Chance is here. But yeah, I think the Mets have just been a huge disappointment for everybody. Myself included. I like the Mets. I'm not a Mets-hating Yankee fan. I enjoy when they're good. And I think this team is a fun team. And in theory, they just completely fell apart this year. Sorry, says Jimmy. No worries, buddy. So yeah, I think they're, very limited, but that top end is pretty good in terms of talent, in terms of DFS upside. Speaking of bad teams that are really disappointing, somebody sent out a tweet. I didn't verify it. I didn't check it, but they said that no team in however long has dipped as far as both the Mets and the Yankees from their playoff odds from opening day to August, what's the day, the 15th. It was like 81% for the Yanks and 78% for the Mets, their decline in probability. Ugly seasons here in New York. Luis Severino, speaking of ugly seasons, holy hell. 18% strikeout rate, 9% walks, 5.13 xFIP, 8.06 ERA, 5.79% home run rate, 45.5, excuse me, I don't want to shortchange him, percent hard hits, 11.2% barrels. If that doesn't get you excited to play the Braves, you just haven't been watching baseball this season. Ronald Acuna Jr., Michael Harris, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Marcelo Ozuna, Eddie Rosario, Sean Murphy, Orlando Arcia, and their superstar, their newest superstar, Nicky Lopez at the bottom of the lineup. Did we not say that Nicky Lopez had life on this team? My God, ridiculous. Braves are outrageous. I think it's an excellent lineup. They take a minor ding by losing Ozzie Albies, obviously, one of the top second basemen overall in all of baseball, the best power hitting second baseman in baseball when we don't count Mookie Betts. Tremendous loss at the top of the lineup, but now you just plug and play Michael Harris for cheap, 4,100, 3,200 for DFS purposes. That's a little bit advantageous because it lets us build out the top of the lineup a little bit better rather than 6,200, 4,000 Ozzie Albies. So I like the spot for Harris quite a bit. He's pulled his life together, 112 WRC plus, 288, 339, 455. Remember when he was underperforming? You can't even see it anymore in the stat line. Acuna's an MVP. Austin Riley is one of the best third basemen in the game. He's up to 29 home runs now. Remember when he was underperforming for a couple of weeks there? He really caught up to the pace. He might go for 40 now. At a point I was saying, man, he might not get to 30 this year. And he just came roaring back to life. 237 ISO on the season, 26% better than average creating runs. 281, 340, 518. Everybody on this team gets on base pretty reliably. Everybody hits for power. Olsen at 61-45, totally worth it. 43 homers on the season for the league lead. 345 ISO, 162 WRC plus. Ozuna's got power. Rosario's got power. Sean Murphy's got power, hiding down the bottom of the lineup at 56-37. He loses a tinge of his upside that he normally has, hitting like fifth when he slides down the lineup like this. So it's not ideal for Murph, but he's still got massive power. He's still probably the best hitting catcher in baseball, and when we factor in power and and his 264 ISO is 146 WRC plus. I'm not breaking any new ground that he's really good. 56 is a little bit of a tax to pay for him, but it's fine. 37, same deal. You just play him like a second first baseman in this lineup on both sides, or on the FanDuel slate rather, and you play him on both sides. Arcia, one of our favorite options for value at the bottom of the lineup all season long. Nothing has changed at all. And Nicky Lopez, shortstop and outfield on DK, triple position eligible for still 2,100. Has never been a overly productive player, but now he's in this ridiculous lineup. If he just gets on base and turns the lineup over, he's finding his value at these prices. 480 plate appearances for him last year, though. I don't want to gild the lily too much here. 227, 281, 273, a .046 ISO in 57 WRC plus. That's not a short season. 480 plate appearances is a significant sample. The year before was kind of effective. 300, 365, 378, 6% better in average creating runs, 22 steals. That's good enough. If he's this guy at the bottom of the lineup, that's a steal for the Braves at this point. At least while they have to play him. So Braves top to bottom. Easy enough to get to. Absolutely no Luis Severino. Little bit of Bryce Elder, maybe, just given the Yankees of it. He projects out fairly well. 8,700, 7,900. Value pricing. Not an extreme strikeout option, but the Yanks could lend him a little bit of strikeout upside. 24.2% strikeout rate for the confirmed line, or for the projected lineup. I'm sure we've got the confirmed in by now. Oh, it's an IKF at the top of the lineup day. Oh joy, oh joy. I know he's been good when I call him bad, but he's not good. Give me 1 second. And I will demonstrate how not good he is. 4% below average creating runs, only a 111 ISO, only a 326 on base percentage, so not really a great on base option up at the top of the lineup. 261 batting average, he does put the ball in play. That's why the Yankees signed him, because he puts the ball in play. He's a light slap hitting option. 6 home runs, 10 steals. Has the knack to get involved when on TV and with people that I argue with about his quality happen to be watching. So I get text messages all the time with just IKF and an exclamation point whenever he produces like a run scoring single or something like that. Hope my uncle's watching. 2,700, 2,300. He is a valuable mix-in given his multi-position eligibility, kind of like what he does for the Yanks. He plays all over the field, and he could, if he happens to get on, which he doesn't do all that reliably, provide correlated scoring with Judge, with Torres, with Stanton. Jake Bauers drops down the lineup to 5th. I still like that spot for him for power. We're not worried about getting on base in that spot, so maybe he can swing for the fences a little bit more loosely. 21% barrel rate, 51.6% hard hit rate, 11 homers and 224 plate appearances. That's the good. 34.4% strikeout rate, 217, 295, 455. That's the bad. Glaber's been really good, one of the more valuable second basemen in baseball, 18 homers, 12 steals, a 113 WRC plus. Giancarlo Stanton hasn't been bad in terms of his power output. Another player where if he's going to cost 2,900 in the outfield on FanDuel, all I care about is the power. 4,600 on DK in the outfield is a little bit pricey to only care about the power, but it's cheap enough given how cheap everybody else is in this lineup. If you're stacking Yankees, it's a good enough value play. DJ's been bad. Harrison Bader's been inconsistent. Volpe's been inconsistent. Ben Rortvedt hit his first home run of the season. He had 3 a couple of years ago, but he's primarily here because he's a good defensive catcher. Good at framing pitches, good arm, so on and so forth. Braves bats, big yes, top of the board. Bryce Elder, minor yes. Yankees bats, minor yes. Mix in. The Yanks do have good points per dollar value, particularly on FanDuel. Really on both sites, but a lot of these FanDuel prices, especially for some of the good players, are pretty extreme. So they do hit the board a decent amount for points per dollar value. And Elder's not ungettable, invulnerable, unhittable, impervious to power. Any other adjectives or descriptions I can think to throw at him. 2.56% home run rate is definitely good at limiting power, and that's something that he's been good at. He was good at it last year in a small sample. 54 innings, 9 starts, only a 1.76% home run rate, 34.4% hard hits, 5.8% barrels, 88.2 on the exit velo. It's up a little bit this year, but not like concerningly so for him. But I think if you're looking to a lineup for I need a home run, there are still some reliable options like Aaron Judge floating in this Yankees lineup. So he's not completely not targetable because he's not a big blowaway strikeout pitcher. He's going to pitch to a little bit of contact against this team if they can manage to make it. They might just swing and miss so much or watch so many pitches trying to be picky that he ends up with a big strikeout total that he doesn't normally get to. But there should be a little bit of bat on ball available for the Yanks today. So at value pricing, bat on ball skills for some of these hitters, they're like a mid-range option at best. Moving on, the Detroit Tigers, the Minnesota Twins. We've probably got these lineups in too. We do. We've got like most of these lineups in, guys. This is killer. Really, just the last 3 games. It is also a little bit warm in here today. Apparently, one of my the reason the power went out earlier was one of the neighbors has 3 air conditioners running in their apartment, and when they plugged in the third one, it went and blew the fuse in their apartment. So they were down here throwing switches in the fuse box trying to turn it back on. But it's like, yeah, dummy, you can't plug 3 air conditioners into the same wall outlet. It's not going to work. You're probably going to start a fire and burn the building down. So that's a plus. If I happen to expire that way, avenge me. Detroit Tigers, Minnesota Twins, Bailey Ober at the top of the board. 10-2, 10-3. Pricey to pay for Bailey Ober, but he's a good pitcher, like I said. The 3.40 ERA, 4.31 xFIP is a little higher than we want, but excellent in the walks, 4.3% walks, a 1.11 whip, an outstanding swinging strike rate at 13.5%. That's really good. His CSW should actually be higher, and it's weird that his CSW is this low, particularly given that walk rate. Not a lot of called strikes in here for the 13.5% swinging. It's a little bit of a weird combination of factors, but gets it done for strikeouts overall, 24.3%, one of the better marks on the board for among the reliable pitchers, the guys who are likely to, pitch a bunch of innings. Pretty good for limited contact, 35.1% hard hits, 88.6 miles an hour of exit velo, 1.76% home runs, but 11.7% barrels, 19.5 degrees of launch last year. A little bit in terms of the hard hits. Similar the year before with a home run issue the year before. He's a fly ball oriented pitcher, so it's one of these situations where a couple mistakes tend to be louder mistakes than somebody who keeps the ball on the ground a little bit more. But he's been getting away with a little bit of premium contact this year, and he's typically pretty good at pitching through any contact issues. Like last year, 56 innings, 11 starts, the 1.76 is pretty good. So against this Tigers team, I definitely believe in this Bailey Ober projection. I think he's got ceiling beyond this mark. He's expensive, but I think he's really, really worth going to in this spot. I'm probably not breaking any ground that other sites aren't talking about today. He'll probably get some popularity. People just know that you can attack the Tigers with basically anybody, especially, and if even in a complete information vacuum, where it's just somebody looking at the pricing and then they happen to know that the Tigers are a good matchup, they'll just say, oh, a high-priced pitcher has to be in a good spot against the Tigers. So he'll gain ground popularity-wise as we approach lock, and he's probably already projected for popularity. I just really don't care. I really like this spot. A couple shares from the Tigers if you want to go there as a contrarian option. It's really the lefties. It's Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, Spencer Torkelson, who's right-handed, I know, but he's the other good option. So it's those 2 lefties and Spencer Torkelson, and then you're mixing and matching your way through some kind of meh options, middling options at best. Akil Baddoo, a lefty bat, 2,800, 2,400, has provided counting stats in small doses in the past. This year, 218, 305, 359, 15% better, worse than average rather, creating runs, 7 homers, 6 steals, and 250. He's gotten a little bit of opportunity this year and hasn't done much with it. Last year, 2 homers, 9 steals, and 225. The year before, 13 homers, 18 steals, and 461. 8% better than average creating runs. He can do. He's just unlikely. Riley is their best overall hitter. Riley Green, 4,400, 2,900. This is both cheap and their most expensive hitter at the same time. Totally affordable for this bat. He's a good enough hitter. 11.8% barrels, 48% hard hits, 307, 369, 478, 37% better than average creating runs, 10 homers, 6 steals. You're not building any, probably with a tiny, tiny microscopic little M in front of it for many Tiger stacks without Riley Green in them. He's just a priority bat in this stack. If you're going to this team without him in it that many times, you're making a mistake. Kerry Carpenter is a true lefty power hitter, 11.4% barrels, 43.5% hard hits, 15 homers, and 277 plate appearances, a 230 ISO, a 135 WRC+. plus. Those 2 lefties are the priorities in this lineup. And then Spencer Torkelson, given his excellent contact profile, and I did say Spencer Torkelson and excellent in the same sentence. 13.6% barrels, 51.1% hard hits. What's not to like? 18 homers, 185 ISO. That's okay. It's better than what MJ Melendez does with his premium contact. 228, 308, 412. That's what's not to like. 99 WRC plus. That's what not to like. He's not overly consistent, but he's also not expensive. 4,200, 2,800. What are we arguing about? Nothing. Miggy Cabrera, Zach McKinstry, Isan Diaz, and Eric Haas are all extremely limited options with below average WRC plus marks, below average output. Miggy's been a little bit productive against lefties this season, but he's not facing a lefty. He's facing a pretty good righty. Not a lot to like down bottom. Matt Vierling got more of his okay stats here against righties than lefties this season, but he's just not really that good overall. 3,400, 2,500. What's the breakdown? I know I put it in the article. A 101 WRC plus with a 138 ISO in the split against righties with a 267, 318, 404. Is that all that much more appealing than what he's done overall on the surface? He's just a mediocre option. So really not much love for the Tigers. Even as a hedge against the Bailey Ober position, it's just a few shares, if any. And it's really super, super priorities for these two and pretty high priority for him. And maybe it's just a three-man. I honestly don't know if I need any of these other guys. The top likelihood to produce is probably just in a straight line with Akil Baddoo and Matt Vierling in there. But those are limited options. Twin side of things against Fado, I do think they have a little bit of potential for some cheap home runs. They're showing through as a pretty good value option. I think they were a strong value option on the DK slate. 12th on the board overall by fantasy points, 16th by home runs. And all I said in the article was project well for points per dollar. I didn't give the exact ranking. So they were like a good mid-board stack across the board, basically, at worst. Some pretty good projections, some okay power marks here, and a lot of cheap prices for, at worst, decent players. Jorge Polanco, one of their better options, their most expensive hitter on DK at 4,400, so a lot of value there. 2,900 tied for the most expensive on the FanDuel slate. Nobody on the Twins over 2,900 on FanDuel. Nobody on the Tigers over that mark either. Debatable which of these groups of hitters is better between the priority bats, honestly. To do it the same way, priority bats from Minnesota would be Polanco, Kepler, probably Carlos Correa, Matt Wallner, for me, Joey Gallo, oddly. I do think there's more upside for home runs, a little bit more for run creation. There's a ton of strikeouts on the board for Fado if you can find them. 40 and a third, 8 starts, 21.5% strikeouts on the season. Feel like he hasn't pitched on a main slate in a minute. 8 starts in the show, 7 in AAA. He has a 3.42 ERA and a 4.23 xFIP in AAA, but a 5.80 ERA and a 4.43 xFIP in the majors. Striking out 29.4% of minor league hitters, but just 21.5% of major league hitters in that sample. Walk 6.1%, a 1.07 whip. Allowed a lot of premium contact in the small sample with 5.52% home runs, 9.3% barrels, 89.5 miles an hour of exit velo. Upper middle kind of a projection. Some strikeout potential in his, ability, and then definitely some strikeouts in this lineup, given the 28.1% for the confirmed lineup. I think we can get away with some Fado shares here. 7,000, 7,700, good value dart if nothing else. Not a extremely likely to succeed option, obviously giving up a ton of contact, a lot of runs so far in a tiny sample, but demonstrable ability at the AAA level at least. Twin side, if you're going there, like I said, I do like Polanco off the top. I like Max Kepler for some very cheap lefty power. 19 home runs on the season, a 7.65 in the model, a good contact profile, one of their better options for limiting strikeouts. Royce Lewis, decent option, 99 plate appearances, 326, 354, 474, 31% better than average creating runs in a small sample. Third base, not ideal. Shortstop, better positioning for him. But then you're playing Carlos Correa at util if you're putting them both in the lineup. So maybe more of a mix and match option. Getting Correa at 2,700 with his upside for power, even in a down season, still 15 home runs, 45.2% hard hits, 10% barrels. A not star caliber, but a non-tragic 179 WRC plus, ISO 97 WRC plus. He's been bad. His triple slash is bad, but overall he's just a little bit below the productive line for him at these prices. And we know the ceiling is high. Matt Wallner, excellent contact profile so far. 8 home runs and 117 plate appearances, a 280 ISO, 142 WRC plus. Lefty bat for 2,400, 2,900 in the outfield. Very cheap going up against Fado. All the contact he's going to allow. Same applies to Joey Gallo. 2,600, 2,400. First base and outfield eligible. I know that people don't like Joey Gallo. I know why. He's got a 42.3% strikeout rate. He puts a lot of zeros into lineups. He's a 185 hitter. He's got a 305 on base percentage. He's also got 20 home runs in less than 300 plate appearances. He's got a 280 ISO. He's got a 112 WRC plus despite the despicably bad on base, the terrible average, the 14.1% walk rate that's low for where we need him to be given a 42.3% strikeout rate. But all this premium contact for these prices, I mean, it is one of the better bargains when he's on a slate. Full stop. Michael A, 2,200, 2,500. Very low end option, 15 homers, 11 steals. Also very low owned option at the bottom of the lineup on most slates. Twins play kind of oddly top to bottom, just as like value plays with a little bit of believable ceiling around some of the power bats. And obviously not insurmountable matchup against Alex Fado here, but I'll both sides that. So I'm going Bailey Ober big time up top. Twins bats, Bailey Ober big time up top. Alex Fado for value, and then Twins bats, and only a very minor hedge position around those priority bats in the Tigers lineup. Los Atléticos de Oakland. Tony Kemp back in our lives up at the top of the Oakland lineup. Huzzah, huzzah. Everybody's happy to see Tony Kemp anywhere in a lineup, let alone in the leadoff role. Oy, these teams. These low-end teams. No wonder you guys are winning like 15 games a year, moving your team to a different town. No wonder Colorado sucks in cores, and the numbers are down for cores overall because they're so bad this year. All these teams with these weird decisions. Tony Kemp is jerks and profile like 12 stolen bases, 3 home runs, a 211, 299, 303 for the season, a 76 WRC plus in 330 plate appearances. A lefty bat who has provided a little bit of counting stat ability over time, but not nearly a priority in this matchup. Zach Geloff is a presumably good hitter, 15.9% barrels, 47.8% hard hits, 277, 336, 624 with a 347 ISO, 8 homers and 6 steals in an outrageous outburst of talent at the beginning of his career, over 110 plate appearances. I expect he's going to cool, or maybe he's just one of the best third basemen or infielders. Which position does he actually play, by the way? I haven't actually watched him in an Oakland game. Is he a second baseman or a third baseman? I need to know. I thought he was a second baseman by trade, but he's got a third base eligibility on the FanDuel slate. And then Jordan Diaz, like I said yesterday, is the opposite with third base on DK and second base on FanDuel. But either way, Geloff's been outrageous. He's also seen his price spike, though. $3,900 on FanDuel. We're getting a little pricey. The output's been great, but how much of it is real? Brent Rooker, we saw how much of his output was real. It's not much. But now he's just a cheap power option. 5.17 in the home run model. Seth Brown, believable power in the middle of the lineup from the left side. 11 home runs, 2 steals, a 197 ISO, a 101 WRC plus. Ryan S. says, just tuning in, did you do the home run chart yet? No, Ryan, I typically throw that one up when people ask, so give me a sec to finish this game. We'll jump over to it real quick since you asked so nicely and came here specially for it. I appreciate you mentioning it. It's one that I should work in a little bit more. I know it's something people like to see on the shows, but yeah, haven't taken a look at it outside of individual spots. Jimmy James says 24% strikeout rate to right-handed bats for Fado is enough for me. I like that number. Jimmy says Ober looks great now. Yeah, like that too. Emerson Hancock I also like. I'm agreeing with Jimmy a lot here. Glad he showed up. Poe DJ and Stoner's in the house. Hancock, Olsen, Semien, Lopez, Seager, Harris, Acuna, Garcia, Torkelson on my FanDuel. Pray for my DFS baseball soul. I don't hate it, but Torkelson, might be a question mark. It's really more of a hedge position against Ober shares, but a capable enough bat like we just looked at, and definitely squaring the ball up nicely this season, showing a lot of growth at the plate this year. All right, let's keep on rolling through the end of this one, and then we'll take a quick peek at that home run chart. So this is a really bad lineup. They're going up against Dakota Hudson. 5,800, 6,400. He projects out really low on the board. 22.3, that was like one of those bottom end where I said like the cutoff line is here. I think he was like another spot down. It's obviously an extreme value price. 31 and a third innings, 16.1% strikeouts is not great. 4.31 ERA, a 4.72 xFIP. For the good news, he went 12 innings over his last 2 starts. 7 innings with 7 strikeouts against the Twins. That strikeout target we were just talking about for Alex Fado. If Dakota Hudson can get there, Alex Fado can get there. And then a 2 strikeout outing over 5 innings, but that was against the Rays. It was in Tampa. You'd like to see a better and a longer performance. He gave up 3 home runs in the sample across the 2 starts, 1 to the Twins, 2 to the Rays, 3 runs overall in both games, but he kept the Twins to just 2 hits in that long 7-inning start. So I do think there's the idea of reliable depth if things are going well against one of the worst lineups in baseball. That gives them a tinge more strikeout potential than his limited strikeout rate would suggest, just given the idea of 7 innings. You face more hitters, you strike more of them out probably if you're pitching even at that rate. So with the idea of such a cheap price tag, I do think you can throw some value darts at Dakota Hudson shares against one of the worst teams in baseball. It's easy enough to justify in this spot. Very, very cheap at 58, very cheap at 64. More limited option, I think, on FanDuel, just because we don't know that we're getting 6. Even if he has a shaky couple of innings, we're probably pretty limited in what we need from him over there. But as a very cheap SP2 on DK, even if he gives up a little bit, I think you might get enough productivity out of him. Got to get deep into the game, but you could get there against this A's team. To round off the A's, I was saying Diaz, moderately in play, 2,600. He's cheap at second base in the infield, but I'm not going to him that many times over Gelof. Actually, I don't need to because they're opposite position. That's right. Soderstrom, premium rookie catcher, 2,700, 2,300. Not producing much in 79 plate appearances at the major league level, but probably will over time. 1 home run on the board so far. Lawrence Butler's really cheap. An option at the bottom of the lineup for 23-21. Nick Allen, Esteury Ruiz. We know Ruiz has a ton of speed, 46 steals. Just needs to get on base. Only getting a 250 average and a 300 on base percentage. Kind of disappointing. But he's a rookie. I mean, 46 steals for a rookie is great. So you get him on base a little bit more. You teach him up a little bit over time. He could turn into a very strong asset for fantasy. But right now, just kind of a limited mix-in. Cardinals going up against Spencer Watkins. You are out of your gourd if you're planning on playing Spencer Watkins in this spot. In AAA, with both Baltimore and Houston this season, he had a 7.27 ERA and a 5.95 xFIP in 26 innings with Baltimore. And then in Houston's system over 20 and a third, he had a 9.74 ERA and a 6.40 xFIP. No appeal whatsoever. Target him with Cardinals bats. I really don't see any need to go to Spencer Watkins, even on a short slate. Just doesn't make sense. 30 years old, not a prospect, not an up-and-comer, 30-year-old pitcher. 105 innings last year of 13.7% strikeout rate, 4.68 xFIP, 4.70 ERA, little bit of premium contact, moderate home run rate. Home run problem the year before in 54 and 2/3, 13.7%. Sounds familiar on the strikeout rate. 5.59 xFIP and 8.07 ERA. Fire away with Cardinals bats. I know they've disappointed us time and again, but they produce typically when I'm not on them enough as I want to be. I got off a bunch of shares of cards last night, and it cost me the shot at some Goldie one-offs, I think, just because I pivoted out of a lot of cards positions when I had the Gorman news broke. Gorman scratched last night. He's also not in the lineup tonight. That's a little bit of a ding, but I still think they're excellent. Lars Nootbaar off the top, 4,500, 3,200, 280, 380, 450, 171 ISO, creating runs 31% better than average. Excellent option for power, excellent option for speed, 19.7% strikeouts and walks 13.9% of the time, which actually leads this team right now. Smaller sample than some of the other guys, but he's just very good. That's a profile of a really good hitter. He's cheap for that talent. 4,500, 3,200 in the outfield. That's a very good option off the top as a lefty against Watkins. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, major home run assets, major power assets, run creation assets, everything you could possibly want on your corner infield spots. 457.33 and 55.34. Those are affordable prices for those two players in this matchup. Alec Burleson hitting cleanup. Gets a lefty in there in the cleanup spot, 2,900, 2,200. No Gorman, this is where he'd be probably hitting in this lineup. 244, 292, 413. 8 homers, a 169 ISO. Playable part, first base and outfield eligible, 2,900, 2,200. You're not going to him many times at first base over Goldschmidt, but in the outfield you can play him. Given the likes of Tyler O'Neill, Jordan Walker as other outfield options. They're very low priced. 3,825 for O'Neill is very cheap for a guy who had 34 home runs 2 years ago. Walker's been a moderately productive rookie this season, underperformed expectations, but has been okay. 10 homers, a 105 WRC plus in 301 plate appearances. Comes cheap, 46.2% hard hits for 3,000 is worthwhile. And then Andrew Knizner delivered a monster game the last time we talked about him, up to 9 home runs. I think he was at 7 going into that one. I'm pretty sure it was a double down game. 220 ISO, 9 homers, 9.9% barrels, 40.5% hard hits. It's pretty good for a backup catcher for 2,900, 2,500 from the bottom of the lineup. I'll take some Andrew Knizner shots. That's difficult to say. That's fun to say. Going up against Spencer Watkins, I will take my shots with Mr. Andrew Kneisner. Kneisner? I still haven't figured out exactly how that's said. Taylor Motter, Tommy Edman, mix and match parts. I greatly prefer Edman, so should you. Motter's an older player, mix and match kind of a guy. Older in that he's in his young 30s, I think. 31, I want to say. But just not 33. Just not like a prospect or anything like that. Edman's the more playable option. Got himself up to 103 WRC plus, 10 homers, 15 steals. Moderate power, moderate speed. Let's take a look at that home run board. So that was Cardinals bats. Big yes. Some Dakota Hudson value darts on either site, really, with low expectations, but a believable enough ability to exceed that projection anyway and be a value part. Like it a lot better on as an SP2 on DK. No real interest in the athletics, minor hedge position, maybe a few value-based darts, but there's not really a lot of talent. And then absolutely no Spencer Watkins. All right, home run board. Make sure everybody's selected after updating the run totals. Esteury Ruiz, not a big chance. That's why we sort largest to smallest. Pete Alonso, top of the board in the Mets stack that we talked about at the top. All four of those top-end Mets hitters. It was Nimmo just below the magic number, and then Lindor, who's right over here, and Francisco Alvarez, who's right here. And then Petey at the top of the board. We're all showing premium marks for power in that matchup. Rafi Devers, I talked about getting a lot of power for the Red Sox in that matchup against Josiah Gray. I really like that Red Sox spot, both for the idea of power, given what he's done over the past couple of seasons, not necessarily as much this year, where he's definitely made some strides in limiting home runs, but they're a very good homer hitting bunch against anybody. And then just the run creation that he should be allowing this season with their ability to create runs. I like that spot a lot. Kyle Schwarber I like quite a bit in a Philly stack that I'll go to a pretty good amount of the time. Otani's obvious. He's always in that range. Olsen, and then we're going to get some Braves in here with Acuna. We've got Austin Riley. We've got Marcelo Zuna also above the magic number. Murph slid below it because he was down lineup, and Ozzy Albies is out of the lineup. So a couple Atlanta hitters dip out of there, but four guys above the magic number for the Atlanta. Tristan Casas above it for the Red Sox. A lot of power on today's slate with all this crappy pitching. Kind of makes sense. Cal Raleigh was the home run pick of the day on the site, by the way. Just wanted to go with one of the less name brand options. The only Mariners hitter that's up here. Right? I was looking for the home run play, and I was like, well, I could go to Tristan Casas again, who I really, really like in this one. Tristan's going to hit one today. That was the one I wanted to make, but then I was like, we've used him a few times. That's going to be a popular stack. Let's go a little off the beaten path. So I went with the Cal Raleigh play. Tons of power. It's not crazy sneaky, but probably the least name brand on this in this group. That was the home run breakdown. Stephen Leibowitz says Lars is his jam. No Contreras no Contreras is a bit of a ding, but with the ability that Neisner's got to hit for power at those cheap prices, with probably not that many people going to him, I think you pick up a little bit of ownership that probably offsets it some, and you get that excellent power upside that Neisner's got for the cheap pricing. So you gain ground in terms of being able to pay for Goldie, Arenado, and Nootbaar, and let's say Tyler O'Neill or somebody like that alongside them, or you can offset the expected ownership because he'd probably be a little bit less popular. So I think that's a good spot. Emax says Cal's his guy today as well. Look at that. Look at that collective thinking. That's why we got to get Emac fired over at the other site. Somebody report Emac for an HR violation at the other site so we can get him to join up over here. Come on. Why haven't we thought of that already? Speaking of hive mind. Don't do that. Nobody go do that. Do not do that to poor Emac. We love Emac. We want him to stay where he is, making plenty of money and enjoying his life. He's got a house in Tampa to pay for. Picked the wrong time to start rooting for the Rays, though. I'll tell you that much. Poor Emac. Po DJ, this is definitely a sativa-based slate, my friend. Picked up exclusively sativa options from the store the other day. Yeah, Casas is just absolutely abusing baseball, Steven. I posted the other day, he had the top or second best OPS in all of baseball since July 7th, which was the first time I could find in print on the website when I started calling for his monster second half. So I was a little happy about that. And he's just kind of rolling. Just a premium lefty bat who's just going to get better for them too. an excellent eye, an excellent hit tool, or an excellent contact profile at the plate. Just a really, really good bat. Cycle pick for Podegen Stoner. What the hell? Let's go with Lars Nootbaar off the top. He could do it. He's got all the skills you would need to hit for the cycle here. Right spot in the lineup. Lars Nootbaar, cycle pick. Phil Still says, hey, my Rays are doing all right. Yeah, they're doing all right. They put up a big score on the slate yesterday. They're probably still going to compete in the playoffs. They've still got a dynamite lineup up and down, a really good pitching staff. Just a couple problems. I don't know if you've been following social media the last couple of days. Couple problems. Couple issues. Yeah, not a good situation down there. But still, I actually like the spot again for the Rays tonight. That was one of the big spots that we succeeded with last night. They were second ranked on the projection board last night and put up a 10 spot. So we'll get back there. So just one more time. This was Cards, big yes. Dakota Hudson, minor yes as a definite dart throw for value, but that's it. And then Athletics, bats, minor hedge position, minor option. Angels, Rangers, probably both in. They are. Yeah, 5:13. We're making okay time. Don't let me get too sidetracked, but we're doing all right. I thought we would be a little bit later than that, but I forgot we started at 4, thankfully. Another good reason that I got up early today. I actually finished the article at like 3:20. I was like, damn, I could start the show like 3:30 if I wanted to, but I feel like we would lose people. People would be like, what the hell? Way too early. Do we have the... we'll get to that one in a minute. All right, Angels. I mentioned at the top that I'm probably going to go right back here for a little bit of value. I just like a lot of these bats at all these really cheap prices, and then Shohei Ohtani. Like anybody wants Shohei Ohtani at 67.45, right? We're not worried about him going up against Jordan Montgomery in any way. He's got a 15.15 in the home run model. He's got all these MVP winning stats. I'm just awarding it to him already. I don't think it's a question. Luis Renifo from the top of the lineup at 3,900, 27 on FanDuel with triple position eligibility gives him a ton of value. A little bit of sneaky power upside, 11 homers on the season. Not a great player, but an okay option and one of the better spots in all of baseball, correlating with Ohtani. Or if he doesn't get there with Ohtani, he's got a lot of power following him in the lineup. Drury, Cron, Randall Grichuk, Hunter Renfroe. That is outstanding right-handed power as a group. It's like they're all mid-range guys in terms of their historic output. They've all had a couple big seasons in there, but a lot of very, very good right-handed power bats who end up in the, within a few points of the magic number. 15 homers on the season for Drury, 12 on the season for Cron in a limited sample of 270 plate appearances, only 10 for Grichuk in 314. Power's down a little tiny bit, but he's hitting for better average, getting on base a little bit, creating runs a little bit this season, and the power's not really down all that much. We looked at him the other day. It was 5 or 6 seasons over 20 home runs in his career, peaking at, I think, 32 one year over 30, and I think it was 5 over 20. Renfroe's had 77 home runs since the start of the 2021 season, just 2 years ago. He's been stuck at 17, so I've been repeating that for the past 3-4 weeks now. But eventually he's going to hit his 18th, and then he might just roll from there. Eduardo Escobar's cheap. Switch hitter, a little bit of believable power left in his bat at the bottom of the lineup. Chad Wallach, Jordan Adams slotting in. Jordan Adams, dead minimum price. He's made 7 plate appearances so far and hasn't done anything with them. Let's take a look at his minor leagues real quick. Jordan Adams is 23. He's a moderate option in terms of speed, but not really a highly ranked prospect. Did have 13 home runs and 37 stolen bases and 386 opportunities at AAA this year. That's not nothing. The power seems like it was unexpected, though. He didn't grade out at any point for power, but 70 grade speed. So it seems more like a hit, not even hit, because a 30 grade hit tool. Nothing above 264, nothing above 350 on base this year is pretty good, but like low threes on base. So really a speed and defense kind of an option. They do have an okay grade for raw power, so maybe he's expected to develop a little bit of pop. 13 home runs is an outlier statistically in his minor league numbers, though. Playable part if you're going to Angel stacks at 2,000. Dead minimum guys are always playable. Ranger side of things, I do like Jordan Montgomery, especially at 98 on FanDuel. He projects out really well. It's a pitcher I like to go to. 21.3% strikeouts for this slate. That's fine. 3.38 ERA, 4.10 xFIP. a 2.50% home run rate on 8.5% barrels. Just a good pitcher who pitches clean innings, typically works fairly deep into games. 133 innings and 23 starts is pretty good. Limits walks, limits opportunities. Not a premium option for DFS, typically one of these, better in real life kind of pitchers, but does have ability. Can go out there, and if a couple of it's really only a couple guys above him, go bust, then I think Jordan Montgomery is one of our more likely options on this board. He's just really, really expensive at $11,000 on DK. That's just unjustifiable over there, except for the fact that it's a short slate, so they had to make somebody expensive, I guess. That's really the only justification for it. Similar for Lucas Giolito on the other side. 10-7 versus 86. This price makes sense. I'm going to definitely go to it. He projects a little bit better than Montgomery. I do think there's more strikeout upside for him. But 10-7, that's a big price tag. He's a name brand. He's Lucas Giolito. He's been a successful pitcher over time, successful for strikeouts. Numbers are up a little bit this year in terms of premium contact at 10.7% barrels, 4.33% home runs, 4.37 ERA, a 4.43 xFIP, 25% strikeouts. That's all basically in line with who he's been. The xFIP's up a little. It's approaching a lot, 0.8 in the xFIP at this point. But 4.90 ERA, the ERA is actually a little bit better. Mid-threes year before, a few more strikeouts the year before, but not that far off the mark overall. Strikeouts look basically the same. Walks, swinging strikes look basically the same. So basically pitching like Lucas Giolito. Got himself traded off that miserable Chicago team. Had an opportunity to succeed with Los Angeles. I think it's basically evaporated for them at this point. But definitely has a chance to succeed even against the Rangers here. I think you take a both-sided approach if you're going to this spot, though. I definitely think the Rangers' bats are in play. Marcus Semien on the board, Corey Seager on the board, 2 stars at the top of the lineup. I've mentioned Semien's price is a little high at $6,000 given what he's focused on this year, which is limiting strikeouts, putting the ball in play a ton, getting on base fairly reliably. He does have 19 homers and 11 steals, so it's not that far off, and he had a big game last night. He can prove again and again that he's capable of ceiling scores for that price. So it's not all that high. It's not like a mistake, but it's probably a couple bucks high. 36 is a little more comfy on the FanDuel slate at second base. 63.43 for Seager is totally justifiable. 185 WRC plus, a 301 ISO, 20 homers and 344. He's excellent. Nathaniel Lowe, cheap for his production. 278, 368, 447. Good for correlation. Good for a little bit of individual pop. 3,400, 4,600 at first base. He's too cheap, but he helps pay for everything else. Adolis Garcia, 30 home runs on the season, 7 steals, a 260 ISO, 34% better than average creating runs. This is a dynamite lineup top to bottom. Garver and Jonah Heim in it, so you get 2 catchers, dual catchers in play on both sides, really. They both got decent power from the right side. Garver 3,400, 2,900, and then Jonah Heim 38-32. I think you can play them both in an interesting configuration. If you skip Nathaniel Lowe and you put one at first base and one at util, that's kind of a weird configuration that I don't think many people arrive at naturally with those 2 hitters. And they're capable enough bats to pull that off. 140 WRC plus and a 121 WRC plus in 179 and 363 plate appearances. 8 homers, 14 homers. Good triple slash numbers. Capable enough guys to pull that off. It's not one I'll go to every time I build a Ranger stack. I definitely want some Nathaniel Lowe in there. I want some other guys mixing through that util spot. But that's a playable configuration that not a lot of people will go to with what could be a successful team tonight. JP, not JD Martinez at the bottom of the lineup for cheap prices. Ezekiel Duran, 4,126 is still very, very cheap for his output, which is all very believable for who this player is. And then Jankowski gets himself on base at a decent clip at 387, steals bases, 16 stolen bases. Good enough as a wraparound play for 3,500. Rangers lineup plays top to bottom. Giolito definitely in play, though, particularly at 86 on the FanDuel slate. I will buy some strikeouts at that price on FanDuel. It's a tougher ask on DK, but I assume that'll keep the ownership down as people just flock to, some of the also ran type guys, the mediocre options in, equally bad spots. I'll just take the faith in Giolito at this price and hope that I get him a little under-owned. Probably a 4 corners game if I had to rank it. Given where he projects and the slightly lower pricing, I'll say Giolito on top. Jordan Montgomery. Angels bats because of the pricing and the value. Rangers bats. Rangers have the higher run total, I believe. 4.86 for the Rangers, 3.74 for the Angels. Angels obviously got blanked, and this spot did not crush last night. It crushed my lineups last night. I had way too many Angels. It'll be more limited, I think, tonight, just given the size of the slate tonight and everything. But I think I'm going back there for some value. If I'm going there, it's a lot of those power hitting righties and Mr. Ohtani in a lot of those lineups. Let's keep on trucking. Handful of games left. Not too bad. It's just a lot of talking. Steve Mackler says, hopefully Tukey doesn't walk the world tonight. I kind of hope he does, because I'm going to be playing some Cubs bats against him. Steven says Terry's zipping through this slate. We're coming up on 5:30. We got 5-6 games left. I'm trying, man. Yeah, I think I'm going for some Cubbies bats in the Battle of Chicago here. Let me put the lineups in real quick. Went the wrong way. I haven't been there on Tukey. I haven't really regretted it. I think he had one semi-effective start, if I remember. Overall, 23.4% strikeouts is fine, but a 4.27 ERA with a 4.67 xFIP and a 15.9% walk rate in 46 and a third, 7 starts, a 1.40 whip. Not lousy for contact at 6.7% barrels, 87.7 miles an hour of exit velo, and 1.99% home runs in the small sample this year. That was okay in a small sample last year, but it was pretty bad in a small but larger sample the year before. Struck out more that year, struck out more last year. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I had that wrong. Struck out slightly more this year than 2 years ago. Walking more this year than 2 years ago. Walking slightly less than the small sample last year. Just not a pitcher I really have any faith in whatsoever. I don't really know how people arrive at this guy all that often. But he's a guy who tends to get some buzz when he makes starts. 6,900, 7,000. Obviously, you're paying the right price if you like it, if you've got your reasons. I'm happy to entertain him too. I'm not calling you wrong. I just don't necessarily see it. But if you've got your reasons for liking Tukey, drop them into the chat. We can talk about them. But for me, it's just all those deficiencies just lead directly to what the Cubs do well, which is get on base, which is sequence. 346 average on base percentage for this lineup. Basically everybody above average for run creation. Average WRC plus of 117. Decent amount of power. Good stolen base upside. I just like this Cubs lineup. They're not that expensive. They've got star power in Cody Bellinger. Dansby Swanson is maybe a step down from a star, but a guy who's hit 20 home runs multiple times at shortstop. Mid-20s home runs too. Not cheap like 2021. Heimer Candelario's got a ton of power. Chris Morel is super cheap, dual position eligible on DK, triple position eligible on FanDuel for a fair price, not super cheap on FanDuel. Very cheap at $4,600 on DK for a guy with 18 homers at 253 ISO, creating runs 25% better than average this season. John Gomes hiding at the bottom of the lineup where you need to play catchers is a great option at 3,300 for power, 9 home runs and 291 plate appearances at 165 ISO for a cheap catcher bat. That's perfectly good output for home runs. Ian Happ, great on base option, 364 on base percentage, 112 WRC plus, hits the ball hard, steals bases. Mike Tauchman up at the top, 3,800, 3,100. Nico's a little overpriced at the second base at 5,136. Very playable. Definitely a decent correlated scoring option. Good for steals, moderate power. The contact profile at 2.3% barrels, 33.2% hard hits is low, but he puts everything in play, gets on base, and correlates with the other guys in the lineup, and they help average down that slightly high price anyway. Bellinger's the obvious star, the rock in the lineup, 18 home runs, 17 steals, 149 WRC plus on the season. Definitely a priority bat in stacks of Cubs. Tukey's a dart throw for value at best. Doesn't project well for me. Hendricks on the other side, on a different kind of a slate, we wouldn't need to talk about him, but I do think he is slightly in play, which is weird because he's got a 16% strikeout rate compared to the other guy's 23.4. But he doesn't get himself into any kind of trouble. 3.9% walks, 1.12 whip. He gives up runs. He's a pitch to contact kind of a guy. Not terrible for home runs, good for hard hits, good for exit velo. So a soft toss equals soft results back the other way in a lot of cases. 86 and a third, 15 starts, 16% strikeouts, not great run numbers. I think given the price, 7,400, 8,400, given the matchup, it's a very low-end dart throw. It's one of my least favorite dart throws on the board because he's not as cheap as some of the others, but he's got a clear enough path to success on the right night. Mix and match play, dart throw, whatever you want to call it for value. Not a priority by any means, but there's a little bit of potential for success against this low-end White Sox team. Basically two hitters that we fear in the heart of the lineup in Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez. Tim Anderson's been awful all year. Andrew Benintendi's been right there pretty bad with him all year. 88 WRC plus for Benintendi. Not hitting for average, not getting on base enough, therefore not stealing enough bases, creating enough runs. Robert's got 31 homers, 16 steals at 38% better than an average run creation mark. He's been a star. Eloy Jimenez has been a star when he's in the lineup. 14 homers, a 177 ISO is pretty good. A 111 WRC plus is okay. 48.6% hard hits is what we focus on, really. 3,600, 3,000. Definitely a very good power option. Moncada, not great. Cheap at third base. For reasons that I can't quite explain, I do believe there's a better hitter in there. Nothing about the statistics this year would go to prove that, though. So it's just kind of bias more than anything else. Andrew Vaughn does have a little bit of pop. 15 home runs, a 177 ISO. Their third highest priority bat. And then Yasmani Grandal, Oscar Colas, and Elvis Andrus. Pretty weak bottom end. Cubs bats. Big yes. Kyle Hendricks, minor low priority value guy. Not even like a value dart because he's just in the mid-range. So like a mid-level value guy with a low projection. Tukey, an extreme value dart with a very slim path to success in my mind. And then very few stacks of White Sox. Very, very little need for any White Sox on this one. Mariners and the Royals. Mariners lineup is in. I think it looks pretty similar to what we've got. Seattle was one of Krusty the Clown's inexplicably funny city names. Keokuk was another one. Walla Walla and Seattle. I think they're all cities in Washington. That's a joke for Emac. Old Simpsons joke. I don't know if he's still in the chat. Bird Nerd, what's going on, buddy? Bird Nerd says, hey, I know you do it to an extent, but if possible, could you slip a summary of your top stacks and pitchers? Single entry idea at the end of the show for us who show up late. Yeah, I'll try and do that, and we'll kind of talk it through as we go through the pitcher review one more time. You can also reference on the site over on rotoscouts. Just pull up the top stacks tool, and that gives you kind of an idea of where I'm looking. It's got the points per dollar value for both sites. It's got a projection value for both sites. It's kind of like a universal projection. It's kind of just directional. A lot of production here, kind of a go, no go kind of a thing. And then it's got the opposing pitcher and the opposing pitcher's ranking. So gives you a lot of information on one quick, easy look if you can't be here on time. But can't be here on time sounded like a dickish, like I'm judging you for showing up late. That's not how I meant it. But if you find yourself arriving late, that's a good way to check it out and get the info too in a quick small bite and without having to listen to me babble on and on. Stephen Leibowitz, yeah, the Yankees would love to add Cody Bellinger, as would I. That would be a dynamite pickup. The guy I really want, as I've said many times, is to figure out a way to acquire Juan Soto, whatever it takes. I would drive Jason Dominguez and every other prospect they have to the airport and make that deal happen. But we'll see what Soto wants to do as far as the Padres. But out of the guys that are definitely going to be available, yeah, Cody Bellinger would be a top priority option for the Yankees. That said, I don't know that he wants to come here. Oh, we've got a little bit of Wander Franco, Trevor Bauer debate going on. Trevor Bauer, of course, got sent to the minors in the NPB and has been all over the place and from what I've seen. So maybe he doesn't belong in the majors anyway. I know he was very good for a while. Dennis says, before you go, can you read your article to us? That's another way. You could basically replicate this show if you just told like ChatGPT or something to read that to you aloud. Or just, I think most browsers even do that. Just tell it to... That's a better way to do this show. I don't have to do this anymore. I'm just going to put a browser on and have it read the article to you. I ramble just as much in there, sometimes more. Good suggestion. Emerson Hancock. Somebody mentioned him earlier. 5,500, 7,400. First round pick from 2 years ago for them. 5 innings in his first start the other day. I like that he lasted 5 innings. That's all I really care about is getting a little depth out of a premium rookie in this spot against the Royals. Faced 20 hitters. That was against the Padres. Struck out 3, walked 3, allowed a run on 2 hits. Against the Pods, that's pretty good for a kid making his MLB debut. I think he projects well. Middle of the board kind of a projection for very, very cheap on DK. That's an excellent option on DK. 74 on FanDuel. I think I'm going to take my shares of Hancock in that spot as well. We've seen lesser pitchers, or less than what this kid's supposed to be anyway, beat this team and beat them kind of into oblivion for pretty good fantasy scores. In the minors this year, 98 starts, 20 starts, 98 innings, fading. 20 starts, 98 innings in Double-A. He got promoted directly from Double-A. That's how talented they think he is. 4.32 ERA, a 4.51 xFIP, and had a 26% strikeout rate in Double-A. So again, still a developing young kid, but a kid they really, really like. Some pretty good breaking stuff. So some good strikeout potential here, going up against the low-end Royals lineup. If you're going to Royal stacks, which I think you can mix in a few, maybe one of the, not better necessarily, but out of like, do I like the Tigers? Do I like, the cheapo, crappy teams? The Royals are a little bit more on the board, maybe, just given the Bobby Witt, Sal Perez, MJ Melendez of the situation, going up against the kid in the second overall start. Maybe that's where you get a little bit of hedge contrarian type value. But it's a very bad team. It's not a great option. Bobby Witt is the priority. If you go there, 5,800, 3,800. He's expensive, but nobody else is, so it's kind of a nothing price difference. 22 home runs, 34 steals, a 116 WRC plus in a productive year. Everybody else well below average for run creation this year, except for Freddie Freeman in his 174 plate appearances. 9 home runs, 307, 341, 534 in a weird year, 227 ISO. Another guy that's, maybe an interesting mix-in is a cheapo backup catcher, kind of like Neisner. I prefer the Kneisner option in a much better lineup that I'll roster a whole lot more against probably a lower-end pitcher. But Furman's not off the table if you're going to Royal stacks. Mike Massey, 3,000, 2,300, hitting third, cheap enough at second base. If you build a stack with this team, I think the lefty can be in your lineup. That said, 73 WRC plus over 322 plate appearances is not great. Matt Beattie, Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell down the bottom of the lineup. Pretty dicey. 79, 90, and 72 WRC plus. Beattie's only made 35 plate appearances, though. Not great. Greatly prefer the Emerson Hancock side. And then the Mariners. I think we could definitely get to some Mariners here. Both Emac and I apparently picked Cal Raleigh as our home run pick of the day. 11.64 in the model. We've also got Julio off the top at 11.55. Eugenio at 9.89. Ty France hitting third today. Not without value for 3,300, 2,900. Down to 252, 330, 376 this year. Creating runs 4% better than average, but he was much, much better for run creation last year. Much better for power. He hit 20 home runs last year and had a much better triple slash. But hitting third for cheap prices in this lineup that we're going to be going to, I think he's got enough value at first base. Raleigh's obvious. I just said him. Teoscar, 3,700, 2,600. Plenty of power there. 94 WRC plus, not great. 166 ISO, not great output. 17 home runs and 487 plate appearances. We want a little bit more for him if he's not going to hit for any average or get on base. 13.7% barrels, though, 47.4% hard hits. That tells me that it is there, that the upside beyond what he's done so far is still there. Dominic Canzone has been productive in 73 plate appearances, 75 on the WRC+, but does have 2 home runs, and 11.1% barrel rate and 44.4% hard hits, which I've said a bunch of times. That's kind of what I focus on with these rookies in small samples. Let's just focus on getting bat on ball well for cheap prices. Mike Ford's been doing that all year. 11 home runs, a 279 ISO, and 155 plate appearances. Another cheap first baseman in the mix. Jose Caballero, a little bit of on base, down to 344, but a little bit of skill to get on base, get himself involved. But overall, kind of a low-end option. Does have 20 stolen bases on the year. And then Josh Rojas, mix and match option in the infield, kind of low-end. So I would say probably Mariners bats, then Hancock value. And then very limited on the Royals side. I don't think we need to go to Jordan Lyles here. It wouldn't totally stun me if he found a few strikeouts. 25.9% for this confirmed Mariners lineup. There are strikeouts available for him, but he's a really low-end guy. 4.49% home runs, a 6.13 ERA, a 5.29 xFIP. Going to be pitching to plenty of contact. 3.36 home runs last year, 18% strikeouts, 4.40 ERA, 4.42 other way around. Tons of home runs the year before, similarly weak numbers. He's just not a high-end guy. Against this team, he does have the idea that he could have one of those weird, oh, wow, there's Jordan Lyles with 45 FanDuel points. What do you know? It's been a season for that all year long. 65-72, it's a very low-end dart that doesn't project in the above that cutoff line that I put. Let's put it that way. So very weak option there. So it was, like I said, Mariners bats, Emerson Hancock, minor shares of Royals bats if you want to hedge the pitching position. I don't think we need to talk about either one of these pitchers in this situation. Joe Mantiply only getting a couple of innings, no realistic upside. And then Ty Block, 5,300, 5,600. 9.4% strikeouts in 32 innings, a 4.22 ERA, a 4.94 xFIP, 1.44 WHIP, not inducing any swinging strikes, just pitching to contact, going up against this really good Diamondbacks team that I know they've been down a little bit. I know they've underperformed for the last however long, but it's a Coors Field game. They've got tons of talent. I am going to side with hitting on both sides of this one. We got away with Merrill Kelly shares in the Coors Field situation yesterday. I do not think we go back to Diamondbacks pitching in this one. It's going to be Mantiply followed by I don't know what out of the Diamondbacks bullpen. I've got him at... I thought I put it in here. I guess not. Either way, last I checked on the runs board, we have Arizona at a 7, which is pretty big. By the way, the Braves at a 6.34 against Severino. So the Braves are higher than the home team at Coors Field. That's great. Great to just keep running Severino back out there to get pancaked. The Rockies, though, somewhat playable at 5.63. That's a better total than it was yesterday, obviously, against Kelly. Little bit of upside, but they're really bad. So I just hate going to bad teams just because it's a good ballpark situation. That just leads to a lot of days where you're booking 4s and 5s in terms of runs created, especially with this side of the Coors Field this year. Charlie Blackmon's back in the lineup. He's cheap, 3,300, 2,900, 271, 354, 425. A capable enough hitter. By the way, Rockies against the lefty, like I said many times, that's what we're going to be targeting for the rest of the season for pitching, just not in this situation. But they're really bad against left-handed pitching. He's only going to be in there for a little bit, but he's going to take the top off of Ryan McMahon the first time through the lineup. 4,900, 3,700, going to lose all his quality for power against the lefty. Tovar's been bad against both hands overall this season, 79 WRC+, 13 homers, 7 steals. Maybe a little bit of life for the future, but needs seasoning. Elias Diaz, Brendan Rodgers, playable parts in the middle of the lineup for 47.33 on DK, 31.28 at catcher and second base on FanDuel. They're not without value, but they're not great. They're priorities in stacks of Rockies, but they're not guys to say, oh, I didn't get any of them. Let me go build some Rockies stacks. Nolan Jones does have probably the highest upside on the board for this team, 4,700, 3,500. Hits lefties well in a small sample. 11 home runs, a 108 WRC+, plus, and a 214 ISO overall. Togley has done nothing, and Eleuders Montero's done nothing. They both have AAA power from the last 2 seasons. Brenton Doyle is also below the Mendoza line, so all 3 hitters at the bottom of the lineup below the Mendoza line, and just a lot of lack of quality to start the game against the lefties. So limited shares of the Rockies just based on the Coors Field of it, based on the cheap pricing, but low priority, even with the Coors Field factored in. Diamondbacks are a big yes. Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Tommy Pham, Christian Walker, all good options off the top. Variety of price tags and positions, so you can string that lineup together fairly well. Pham helps you average down the pricing of Corbin Carroll, who's still pricey on both sites. A little bit of a dip in power output, 36 stolen bases on the season, a 240 ISO, 129 WRC+. You expect young players to go up and down like this, so a little bit of a dip in recent weeks, but an excellent player in Coors Field whose skill set really aligns well with this ballpark. Tommy Pham does too. Home runs, good speed on the bases, good doubles power, triples power, 120 WRC+, plus, a 197 ISO for Pham. Then you get into Christian Walker, very low strikeout rate, lots of power. Lourdes Gurriel, very low strikeout rate, lots of power. Gabriel Moreno back in the lineup at catcher, 2,500 down the bottom of the lineup. Believable enough bet. Joker, go lie down, pal. We're almost done. Go lie down. I like to think that just like all around the country and up into Canada and wherever else people are watching from, people's dogs just lie down whenever I yell at Joker. They just go, oh shit, maybe he's talking to me. I like to think that, but it probably doesn't happen. Nick Ahmed, Perdomo at the bottom of the lineup, kind of mix in options. And then Buddy Kennedy. Did I look up Buddy Kennedy? I thought I did. 1 home run in 94 plate appearances last year, just 4 plate appearances this year. Not a very highly regarded prospect. He was like a low 20s organizational prospect at the beginning of the season rankings. So kind of a low-end option, 2,900, 2,500. So Diamondbacks as a firm priority. It's one of those situations where you take them, wherever you want against the field, and you're really just rostering price against the field. They're obviously going to be very, very popular. They've got tons of upside in this situation, by far the highest run total on the board. So you take them as much or as little as you want against the field. It's really the decision you're making. I'll probably have a fair amount, but I'll probably be under the field overall because it's a big slate. I do want to spread out. I want to get to some Braves. I didn't have enough Braves last night. I want to get to some of the other good spots. Limited doses of Rockies. No pitching in this one. 3 games to go, which is good because it's 5:42. It's a little too warm in here. Dripping with back sweat. The coffee's cold. This cardboard cup is also disintegrating out from under me because I was putting it on somewhere where I had a glass of ice water before. So now the cardboard's all soaking wet. It's probably going to just fall out. That would be great. If I went to take a sip, the whole bottom fell out and it just drenched me with what is probably still like 18 ounces of, at this point, room temperature coffee. Jack Flash, 8,400, 9,600. A little cheap. Definitely a little cheap on DK. Good pitcher. 22.8% strikeout rate. Kind of Jordan Montgomery-ish. Came from the same organization. Got himself traded over to Baltimore. Good situation. 4.33 ERA, a 4.36 xFIP. Mid-range for strikeouts. Good at limiting power. I like the spot plenty fine for Jack Flaherty in this matchup. I think there is upside for him. Even against this lineup, it's a little bit top heavy, as we know. If he can get through the stars at the top of the lineup, I think he's got a decent opportunity to be a at least slate relevant pitcher. Definitely at that value price on DK. If not, potentially if like the Bailey Obers and Zach Wheelers of the world go pop, Jack Flaherty in this matchup has slate winning appeal, slate winning kind of upside. One of the more talented, more proven guys who's going to pitch reliably deep innings if things are going well. I think you do take out some shares against him with the top of the pods. Ha-Seong Kim, triple position on FanDuel, still too cheap. Very productive season for him. Tatis and Soto are the stars. Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts are strong options at third base and shortstop. Don't look now, but Bogaerts back up to 272, 346, 400, 109 WRC plus. I don't think that ever dipped below. Maybe 1 or 2 days dip below average. But he's held that above the waterline. The average is coming back up. The on-base is coming back up. 12 homers, 13 steals. It's going to be more expensive than this in about a week, assuming everything continues. Jake Cronenworth, Ben Gamble, cheap lefty, bats down the bottom if they're in the lineup. I forgot to check if we had the confirmed lineups. We don't. Good. I didn't want to go back. Gary, tons of power here if he's in the lineup at catcher. 15 home runs on the season at 272 ISO in 215 plate appearances, 14.9% barrels, 45.4% hard hits. Definitely you can go to Gary in some lineups. Trent Grisham, mix and match kind of a play. But I prefer the Jack Flaherty side of that matchup, of that head-to-head, even with the stars up here. I prefer the Jack Flash side. Michael Wacha, 98, 94. What was the hiccup with Wacha? Oh, this is first start back, right? First start back since July 1st. Shoulder issue. Simulated innings only, and then made a 2-inning appearance on August 5th. So I have no idea what the pitch count's going to look like. If he gets 5 innings here, there's a little bit of potential. This is a 5-inning projection, believe it or not, for Michael Wacha in this spot. It's a little aggressive in my mind, especially for his first return from a shoulder injury. I don't really like the spot given a high price at 98.94. If he was cheap, if he was at like Jack Flaherty's DK price, I would kind of like the spot. I'll probably take out a few shares given that it comes through the model okay, and I haven't seen specifics about a pitch count limitation. Across town, they've got him at mid-80s. So there's enough room for 5 innings and some success at mid-80s pitches. They might let him get to 90 if he's going well and in the middle of a plate appearance and let it slide. And like I said, was working on endurance, was working on specific things related to innings pitched while he was out. It's just shoulders concern me, first start backs concern me, and the Orioles are a good lineup on the other side, so that concerns me. I will definitely hedge any position I take with Wacha with some Orioles shares. It's a good lineup. Adley's one of the top most valuable catchers given his spot in the lineup. He picks up plate appearances, 16 homers, excellent at getting on base, getting involved in scoring, low strikeouts, high walks. Very, very strong option. Gunnar, shortstop only on DK for 52. 3,000 third base and shortstop on FanDuel. A little bit more value to squeeze there. 222 ISO, 14% better than an average for run creation. 19 homers, a 52.5% home run rate hard hit rate. 52.5% home runs would be ridiculous. Just falls short of Ryan O'Hearn's 53% in a smaller sample. Gunnar's the more believable, realistic one, despite being the rookie. 5,200 is probably about right now at shortstop. 3,000 is definitely cheap for Gunnar on FanDuel. Santander, switch hitter, 4,600, 3,200, 21 homers on the season, a 216 ISO, plenty of power there. O'Hearn, still cheap, first base and outfield. Definitely easy to go to when he still stays that cheap from the left side. Mountcastle, tons of righty power, 4,400, 3,000, 15 homers on the season, a 201 ISO. all this excellent contact. Mullins, 30-30 guy. Upside for more with the new climate for stolen bases in a full season. Is at 10 home runs and 15 stolen bases and only 304 plate appearances this season. 200 ISO, 118 WRC plus. Star caliber player, down lineup for 4,100, 3,500. Urias, cheap power at 22-26, triple position eligible on FanDuel. Hicks, 2,800, 2,400 if he's in the lineup. Adam Frazier if he's in the lineup, 3,700, 2,500. Value plays galore to throw at Waka. He's not an intimidating presence on the mound. He had a 2.84 ERA in the early part of the season, but only a 4.63 xFIP, 21.3% strikeouts. He's a good, not great veteran pitcher. He's fairly capable of keeping clean innings, keeping the ball in the yard, but he's not unhittable. He's definitely gettable here. So some shares of Waka, but definitely Orioles stacks. Probably call it Jack Flaherty, Padres stacks, Waka, just given the doubt about the innings, and then Orioles stacks. I'm going to put the Orioles stacks above the Waka shares. I will have that few Waka shares just because I don't believe in him at this price with a limitation of innings. So really, really temper your expectations for Waka, is what I'm saying. Joker, calm down. We've got 2 games left to talk about, pal. And then a pitching board, and then we got to say our goodbyes and stuff. But we're getting there. Go lie down. Come on, go lie down, pal. $5:48, 2 games to go. We can knock this out and be off of here by 6 o'clock and have some time to build some lineups. I saw that, Stephen Leibowitz. Flaherty took a shot at Cards fans saying he never had to turn up the volume on the pitch comm there. Yeah, that's a big shot at a pretty dedicated fan base, gotta say. No Kyle Lewis in the Diamondbacks lineup? Oh, yeah, we went through that already. I forgot to mention it, but we went through it. Yeah, that sucks. It was fun to have him yesterday. Good player that when he creeps into the bottom of that lineup, he'll be usable until he hopefully doesn't, but probably will go out of the lineup again with his unfortunate trend of getting injured every single time he takes the field. As I mentioned, I think the Rays are right back on the board. They were one of the better projected teams overall on the slate. They ranked, I think, 5th, I want to say. They were 2nd yesterday. They're 5th today. 6th ranked home run mark, strong points per dollar on both sites. Going up against Jake Junis, who I think is going like 3 innings. Then we're getting into a follower situation here. Not a spot where I want to go to the Giants pitching. 74-65 for Junis is too much. 26.7% strikeout rate is fine. 4.36 ERA, 3.60 xFIP. Pushing a 4% home run rate. Not a ton of premium contact, but not avoiding it by any means. A little bit of a fly ball orientation. I'll just take my shots, I think, with Rays again here. I just like this team. They threw a weird version of the lineup in, so I had to pivot out of like 43 shares of Brandon Lau and like a bunch of other things yesterday because they geared it toward a Sean Manaea appearance. With today's lineup, I'm hoping we get Lau. I'm hoping we get Lowe. I'm hoping we get Luke Raley. I like all 3 of those hitters. Any of those lefties would be priorities in a start against Jacob Junis here. Yandy Diaz at the top of the lineup for 52-36 is a star, essentially. 323, 402, 511, creating runs 60% better than average. 16 home runs on the season, 54.1% hard hits. There's nothing that's not star caliber about what he's done this season. 49-29 for Lau is cheap at second base given his power output. Randy Arozarena for 54-36, a little cheap. 128 WRC plus, 18 homers, 15 steals. It's fair price at worst. Triple position eligible Isaac Paredes was all over my lineups last night. 3,100, 4,100 across sites. Luke Raley, 4,200, 2,800, has 16 homers, 12 steals. Jose Siri's got 23 and 8 in only 293 plate appearances, which is just bonkers. 3,700, 3,100, cheap. Josh Lowe, productive season for him, 14 homers, 24 steals. I know a lot of these guys have cooled. Many of these numbers were collected from earlier in the season, but these guys have that sort of ceiling, as they showed us just last night. Significant any given slate upside for this Rays team. And then Oslevis Basabe. Oslevis? I got to check out how to actually say that name. I just noticed that not just now, but when I was writing about him earlier, I think I was missing the first I in his name yesterday. A lot of letters there. I'll get it. 286, 375, 429, two runs, 2 ribbies in his first 8 plate appearances, filling in for the gentleman of ill repute in the lineup. Giants side of things, Zach Littell, 68.57, playable part. He's very, very cheap, 23.03 in the FanDuel scoring model. A little bit of potential, assuming we get innings out of him. He went 6 innings in each of his last 2 starts, struck out only 1 Tigers hitter in a disappointing performance. He did have a quality start, and he only allowed 3 hits and no runs and 1 walk, but he only struck out 1 against the Tigers. It's just weird. 5 strikeout performance against 25 Cardinals hitters, but gave up a home run, 3 earned on 7 hits against a much better Cards team. But I think given a 6-inning upside, a little bit of potential against the Giants here. It's another situation where I think you just take a little bit of a hedge position if you're going to Giants. That said, if it's this version of the lineup that has Wade Meckler and Joan Camargo in the lineup for DFS, neither of them who, at least earlier in the day, were on either one of these fantasy sites, that becomes problematic when it becomes a 7-man stack. It's just issues for DFS, especially hitting 2nd and 9th. That just puts a big hole in the lineup once it turns over. You create gaps like, and creating stacks on Optimizer. You say, all right, limit gaps to 1 to 2, whatever your propensity is. I just usually leave it open. But for people who are concerned about that, just having 2 complete absences in the lineup is a big problem. Depending on what comes out, they might be playable, they might not. I would focus on lefty power bats. Lamont Wade, Jock Peterson, Michael Conforto, and then Tyro Estrada, some Blake Sable down at the bottom of the lineup for 34.23 if he's in the lineup. He's got 11 homers in 278 plate appearances from the left side. Pretty good contact profile. Catcher eligible. Some interesting bats on this team, but a just very unpredictable version of the lineup here. So we'll see what we get. Rays big yes. I'll go Zach Littell value. Small portions, but 68.57. There's undeniable upside there. And then Giants bats pending lineup confirmation. If it's a 7-man, I really don't want to go there. Boy, oh boy, we're at the last game of the 13-gamer. A couple of minutes left. Greg Biancone says, is bird on the bat the greatest logo in all of sports? What about the old school Yankees top hat on the bat logo? I like that one. There's a lot of good logos out there though. Cards game couldn't make any noise. They were all holding their breath, waiting for Flower to get hurt again. Fair point, Dan. All right, Brewers. Adrian Hauser against the Dodgers. I don't see the appeal. Low end guy, 18.1% strikeouts, 4.38 ERA, 4.44 xFIP. 90.1 miles an hour of exit velo allowed, a 45.5% hard hit. Yeah, limited barrels, not the highest launch angle in the world, only 2.63% home runs, but all those starts didn't come against this Dodgers lineup. I know he had the one outlier start a couple starts ago, 2-3 starts ago, had like a 10 strikeout game, where we were saying like I think I want to take shots at him. I'd like to see him try and pull that off against this Dodgers team. I don't think he gets there. Bobby Miller on the other side, I just think the price is misapplied. Misfit price. I think he's awkward at that price, like that sentence, like that analysis was. 9,300, 9,200. It's a little bit high. 22.6% strikeouts, a 3.89 ERA, a 4.10 xFIP. He's not been bad, but with all the guys that are projecting very much the same in, a variety of prices, a lot of which are lower than that, I don't know how many times I really want to go to Bobby Miller against a fairly low strikeout Brewers team that shows a little life from time to time. It's got some productive bats in it, a couple positive WRC plus marks, a little bit of power, a little bit of excitement with some of the athletic guys, the Sal Freliks of the world. Dicey spot, given the pricing. Maybe a couple shares, but you're paying full freight. You're probably paying a little extra for Bobby Miller on this slate. So I don't love that spot. I kind of prefer the Brewers bats. Not one I'll go out of my way for. Kind of mid-priority stack. They're very cheap. So there's enough. A Dolphin wearing a helmet with an M on his helmet. There you go, Chuck. If Tua takes a bump, does Brady become the Dolphins quarterback? I think that's in the cards, right? That's been the rumor. I've got two in our keeper league, our main league. That's basically the same group as the Dynasty Baseball League. We've just got a one year-to-year keeper league for football. We don't get all that complicated with all the contracts and everything in that league, but we can keep 3 guys this season. And this is the first year that we made it into a super flex. So I've got Tua, I've got Watson, and I've got Danny Dimes, all in like the 15th through 17th rounds or something like that as keepers. But I've also got Saquon at the end of the second. I've got a few decent spots. I've got A.J. Brown, I think, in the third. So I've got a lot of keeper decisions to make. I want to make a trade, but it's like the way that we do it, it's like you can only, if somebody wants to trade me a draft pick so that they can keep Daniel Jones in the 15th, well, what are they going to trade me draft pick wise? Like a 5? They're still sacrificing too much value. It offsets the keeper value, Bleacher Report has Yanks as number 1. Oh, the logo? Right on. The interlocking NY or the top hat? It's probably the top hat. Just conjured John Sterling in my head. Yankees in their home uniforms, white pinstripes, interlocking NY. That wasn't a good John Sterling at all. It sounded almost more like the, the old announcer. One of the last things that Bob Shepard, the old Yankees announcer, the famous PA guy for all those years, number 2, Derek Jeter. Number 2, that guy. One of the last things that he did before passing away was record the intros for my buddy Mike Brown's wedding. He was doing that, I guess, late in life, just to make some money for the fam or whatever. So my buddy Mike Brown and all the bridal party came into their wedding with intros by Bob Shepard. And then I want to say within like 2 weeks, he was dead. Weird. Anywho. Great voice, though. Love Bob Shepard. One of the voices of my childhood. Just always that background, especially with Jeter. Jeter had it recorded, for those who don't know. He had Shepard's voice recorded for the last few seasons of his career so that he would never come out to anybody but Bob Shepard in home games, even when Shep wasn't doing it anymore. Dodgers premium options. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, David Peralta, Jason Hayward, and James Outman. Excellent lefty options for cheap prices to help offset all the premium talent in the lineup. Good power output from all of those guys. Decent for hits, decent for run creation. And then the version of the lineup. I hope we get this version where we've got all 3 of those lefties in the lineup late, Peralta, Hayward, and Outman. And then we get Enrique Hernandez and Ahmed Rosario in the lineup. I like the way that comes together. I like the multi-position eligibility on a few of those guys, the cheap pricing, and just the talent. Ahmed Rosario is a talented guy. He's a toolsy guy. He's underperformed badly this season, but there is plenty of upside. So just 1 through 9 in this Dodgers lineup going up against Adrian Hauser. There's plenty of potential. On the Brewers side, it's Christian Yelich all day, and then you're mixing and matching a lot of these guys. William Contreras does have value hitting second, gains plate appearances in that spot in the lineup, a reliable triple slash, decent power output for a catcher. Carlos Santana can go deep on anybody here. 4,000, 2,900, 15 home runs on the season, a 174 ISO between Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. Kind of limited at this point in his career, but does still have a little bit of switch hitting pop. Sal Frelick, 3 home runs on the season, 2 stolen bases and 82 plate appearances, creating runs 37% better than average. Definitely producing in his first 82 plate appearances in Milwaukee. I'm laughing at Larry's comment. Willie Adames, tons of power, very flawed hitter that we talk about all the time. And then you get into some multi-position cheap guys down the bottom. We're without Joey Weimer at this point, but we do have Kana Monasterio, who's been at a 116 WRC plus over 176 plate appearances. Bryce Turang has given his 6 home runs, 14 steals in a very limited rookie season. And then Tyrone Taylor, who's got a little bit of power output in 119 plate appearances. So some options, cheap pricing up and down the Brewers lineup. Going up against a rookie who's not a great strikeout option, should pitch to some contact. There's a little bit of believable potential. Is a value play at worst for the Brewers. So this one for me was Dodgers stacks with a pretty enthusiastic yes. Brewers in like the mid-range is a pretty decent value option. No love for Adrian Hauser, not against the Dodgers, not at price, just very limited ceiling. And then no real love for Bobby Miller, just given awkward pricing, 93, 92. It's just a little high. He fits in projection-wise into like the lower mid area of the board, so he's not unplayable. But I just think the path to success with that price and what that limits you on bats versus some of the guys even 1,000 cheaper, it's a potentially limiting factor. Stephen Leibowitz says Woodrow Wilson was one of the voices of his childhood. I like it. What was the I forget the a Grandpa Simpson line flew through my head, but I had it and lost it. Another Simpsons line. All right, let me get into this. Wait, Manaea is starting now, Trey? That was a change. So Manaea is starting the game instead of Junis now? I'm glad you brought that up. Lab still has Junis. I hate this opener follower nonsense. It's actually an effective strategy in a lot of ways, but it's just not great for our purposes. Looks like RG also still has Jacob Junis, but I think they get their information from Labs as far as the starting lineups. Keep an eye on it. Manaea, if we had an uncapped innings opportunity, he's obviously got strikeout upside. That would probably give us a version of the lineup again that doesn't have Brandon Lau in it, that might not have Josh Lowe in it, that might not have Luke Raley in it. That would be a limiting-ish kind of a factor for the Rays. It's really annoying. I didn't realize that was going to be the case. If that is the case, yeah, a little bit limiting pending what the Rays do with their lineup. They might be waiting to announce it until the Giants fully figure out what they're doing with their pitching staff, but that's a pain in the neck. Let's scroll over. We'll take a quick look at the pitching board, and we will get out of here. And I'll try and work in the top stack situations as per request. So Bailey Ober with a bullet at the top of the board. Excellent matchup against the Tigers. We're paying full freight for him, but it's worthwhile. It's just a Tigers tax for that matchup. Zach Wheeler, most talented pitcher on the board. Second highest projection. Tough matchup against the Blue Jays, but not insurmountable. Super talented guy. The most likely bad scenario for Wheeler is just an okay start where the Blue Jays score a few runs. The blow-up scenarios are few and far between. The floor is pretty high on Zach Wheeler. Luke Giolito, a lower floor, a much less secure opportunity. 8,600 is a great value price for him on FanDuel, which I am excited to get to. 10.7 is a premium on DK, which is problematic, but hopefully keeps the ownership low. Pivetta, cheap. 8,500, 7,800. Excellent option going up against Washington in what should be a fully unleashed start in terms of innings. Michael Wacha, that's the one I want to call out for. I don't know that I believe in where the innings are at with this one. We might be looking at 4 innings. We might be looking at a really limited pitch count. We just don't know. So given the opponent, given the pricing, I don't love this spot for Michael Wacha. I'm going to do this. Just for people who might not be watching. Let's just keep him. It's not totally red, but it's like reddish orange. Kikuchi's on the board, but I prefer the Phillies side of it. I think this is a good stack. Out of the stacks against the pitchers at the top of the board, the Phillies are a good option. The Orioles are probably a good option against a limited version of Wacha and then the bullpen. The Rangers are probably an okay option, specifically if you're going to roster a lot of Giolito as a hedge position, but they're an okay option on their own given all the firepower in that lineup. The Angels, I think, are a decent option against Jordan Montgomery on the other side of that game, given all the value pricing and all the right-handed power hitting in that lineup, plus Shohei Ohtani. So I like Jordan Montgomery quite a bit. I like him better at the FanDuel price than at the DK premium. I would have him on both sites. I will have him on FanDuel, but I'll also have a decent amount of Angels on the other side. Elder, definitely in play, 79-87 with a little bit of an additional higher strikeout ceiling against those Yankees. They're very low end. They might add some strikeouts to them. They are in play, just given there's a few very, very good hitters in that lineup that are pretty cheap and string together fairly well at the top, but it's a limited opportunity, limited lineup. The Braves on the other side of that game against Severino are the top stack on the board. It's them and the Red Sox, just to spoil the other premium top stack. Red Sox against Josiah Gray and the Braves against Luis Severino. If you were building one lineup, try and figure out how to put those two teams together. They're your most likely, most probable. There's obviously a ton of other good options, including the Diamondbacks at Coors Field, arguably the Rockies on the other side of the Coors Field game. The Cardinals against Spencer Watkins look ludicrously good. The Dodgers against Hauser. The Mariners against Jordan Lyles at the bottom of the board. The Cubbies against Tuki Toussaint at the bottom of the board. The Mets against Bailey Falter. Not necessarily the Athletics against Dakota Hudson. I cut myself off there. Some of these guys are playable downboard. Fado against the Twins, tons of strikeout potential for him. Mid strikeout guy, 77, 7,000. Price is definitely right for some value darts on Fado. Flaherty, definitely at mid-range pricing. good opportunity against the top-heavy Padres. Plenty of love for Jack Flaherty shares. Emerson Hancock, first-round pick, going up against the lousy Royals. 5,500, excellent source of SP2 value on the DK slate. Playable as hell on the FanDuel slate at 74. Peterson, that's a stretch. That's a 5-inning projection. He needs to hit 5 innings to deliver any kind of value, and I think the ceiling's kind of limited. So I don't love the Peterson play, but he's on the board for a value price. 67 on either side is easy enough to get to. Josie Gray, I think, does have a little bit of value against the Red Sox, but like I said, they're one of my favorite stacks of the day, showing a lot of power, a lot of run creation ability. And then Miller, not necessarily a great option, just given the awkward pricing. I actually prefer Zach Littell, given the cheap pricing, 57, 68. Plenty of value there for mid-range projection. Even Hendo and Dakota Hudson. Moderate projections. Any other slate, these are bottom of the barrel kind of projections. But given the way this slate falls, there's not that much daylight between here and here. It's 5 points of projection on the FanDuel scale. 3 points between here and here. It's not a lot. A lot of cheap prices, a lot of okay matchups. It's just embracing bad pitching or young inexperienced pitching in a lot of cases. Obviously you're going to these options, you're embracing some bad pitching. If you're going to him, you're embracing some young developing pitching in a terrible situation. He's got an innings question. He's a young developing pitcher in a good situation. He's got a, interesting matchup. He's a limited pitcher with some home runs potentially against him, but a great strikeout opportunity. It's a messy pitching slate, but that creates opportunities all over the place. It's that whole chaos and opportunity being the same word in, I don't think that's even actually true, but I think that was the old saying. What was it in Mandarin? Chaos and opportunity, same word. Or if we want to quote Littlefinger, chaos is a ladder. I think chaos is a ladder on this slate. I think it boosts you up. Got to embrace the chaos on this one. Got to roster some of these lousy pitching. Greg, we looked at the home run board a little earlier. The home run pick of the day for me was Cal Raleigh. That was the home run board. We were seeing a lot of Mets, some Red Sox, some one lone Philly. Handful of Braves are mixed in here. A lot of guys above the magic number for home run power on the board today, though. Other than that, either rewind or freeze frame because I got to go. 6:09, I got to get some lineups built, gang. Good luck out there tonight. Hit the Discord, hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't. Get into our Discord, jazz it up a little bit so that it's not just Po Degen Stoner pissing everybody off with pictures of his bud. Appreciate you, everybody. Yeah, go to the website too, rotoscouts.com. It's got all the content we just went through up on the website. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. Go get them, gang. I'll see you later.